My name is Freighter C, and this may be the greatest story never told. I spent about 9 hours talking with my good friend Bill, who makes a lot of bold claims about history and the future of humanity and what he claims to be the truth. Now, I'm not 100% a believer, per se. The narrative is fascinating, but there's a lot to the story that he tells. And he goes into great length and detail, and I've spoken to him in the past many a times about a lot of these topics that he covers, and he agreed to allow me to record his voice. I'll let the viewer or the listener decide the truth for themselves. So without further ado, this is truly the greatest story never told.
Yes, I remember. Well, where were you? I was standing right in front of you. I was standing right to that side, to your right side. I was standing to your left, facing you. Your right, if you're sitting. I was standing right there. I was like from here to that, a little closer than here to that TV.
Mm-hmm.
And I even described your apartment, which was the apartment on Clinton Avenue before I was born. So she had to believe it.
Yep.
Because I'm telling her what I was standing and looking at.
Mm-hmm.
I saw you putting the milk out on the little window by the sink. Over the sink, you opened the window. You put because it was winter out. You were keeping you didn't have a working ice box refrigerator. That dates me right there, an ice box. And I remember the Christmas tree. It was in December, November, December. And when she tied it I remember seeing that. That's 4 months before I'm born.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm seeing the tree.
Yeah.
It wasn't a tree, it was a branch.
Right.
It was wired to the corners of the trunk. They had found a little branch and he didn't have any money. Right. He wanted to make her happy, But how could I remember that? Because I was standing there looking. And that means that I had to be existing before I was in a human form.
Correct.
So either I'm an incredible liar or I'm crazy or both. Or the third alternative is I'm telling you the truth.
Right.
There's more than two alternatives. There's three. I'm either crazy, I'm an incredible liar, or I'm telling the truth.
Exactly.
I can tell you that the first two aren't true. I remember a woman, like I said, I've told you this before, you're not hearing anything new, but my first recollection of a human being was not a human, it was a hominid.
Mm-hmm.
It was a woman crying because a large cat had killed her baby. I don't know if it was a baby boy or a baby girl, it was a baby, her baby. I never saw the kid. The kid had been killed, torn apart, or whatever. We just got rid of the big cat in a hurry. I did that personally. Made it suffer. Blew it to pieces. But I remember turning, like I said to you before, I remember turning to the other, like I'm speaking to you, saying, This is the one. This is the one. This was the only animal that had emotions.
Yeah.
That meant that we had something to work with. You can't take it. If I tell you a secret that I never told you before, maybe I don't think, I'll tell you something. It's not very nice, but it's true.
Mm-hmm.
The original humans were created and they moved on. They progressed along the line until the Annunaki, the newcomers, came into the yard and started messing around and frankly perfected the species.
Right. We were basically, what I'm understanding, a gene pool that you guys could play around with and learn your methodologies from.
And we made a lot of mistakes along the way.
Right.
And you'll know about them. And the reason they don't exist today is because artificial mutations, which is what they were, are sterile. They cannot reproduce. You can reproduce because you are genetically sound.
Right.
The monstrosities that were the experiments were not sound. They were mutations. And they did not have the ability to reproduce. Ergo, they died out. When their lifespan ended, they died. That's the aphid bull.
Mm-hmm.
that was another one. That was later on, but the bottom line is, once humans were created, the Anunnaki actually did what I'm thinking. The Anunnaki turned around, I'm going to say something that's very terrible. Sadly, it's true. Nobody wants to hear it, but I'll tell you what they don't want to hear. After they got the human beings going, the species going, to work, in the Anunnaki case, they were using them as a slave race. They weren't really slaves in the sense that you think of a slave. They were workers.
Right.
They were taken care of. They were very valuable. They were very, because if they were died or something had to be replaced, then the Anunnaki would have to do the work themselves, and they were a bunch of lazy bastards.
Precisely.
But they discovered something. They thought of something. They realized that they had worked with the little hominids to bring the early humans that the Watchers started. The Anunnaki got in and they perfected them and turned them into human beings. That is that connection that nobody's been able to figure out, really, how we went from hominids, cavemen, to Cro-Magnon to human so fast. Well, it was intervention. But here's the thing that nobody wants to hear. The makers of the human race turned around and they said, well, no, wait. They're pretty strong. They're nice and rugged, and they can do and they last a long time. They have a normal human lifespan, which is much shorter than us, but it's really serviceable. It's about 70 years, 60, 70 years. And that time was actually more like 40 years, 40, 45 years. But they looked at other human-like species. Specifically, what they did is chimpanzees and gorillas. And they said, well, that gorilla, he's about 5'10", he's about 450, 500 pounds. He's incredibly powerful, we can't control him. He's got the strength of 20 men. They really do. A gorilla could probably almost pick up this building. It really could. It's really just powerful. It's not a human being. It looks like a human, but it's not.
No.
And they looked at that and they said, let me think. If we do this and that, the trouble is, he's a big, powerful animal. And the thing's sitting there scratching itself and eating a banana or a coconut. Whatever it's eating berries, And they said, okay, Congo, pick up the shovel. Okay, that's not going to work. Okay, so we go, okay, now, he's obviously got the strength. He's got 2 eyes and a nose and a mouth, and he's got little ears, and he's got 2 arms. He's bipedal. He's bilateral. He looks human almost. Yeah. But he's not as smart as what we created over here. So what do? Well, we jury-rig him a bit, change his genetic patterns. And they did. And it worked. And this is the part you don't want to hear. You know where I'm leading, don't you? That's where the Africans came from, the black people. That's the truth. That's not a racist remark. It really is not. People have always wondered why there was a separation. They've said, well, it was because there was more light here, and the Scandinavians said less light and heat here. So these ones were brownish black, and these became blonde and white-haired, and white, blonde, blue-eyed. It was not that. It was because they came from 2 different original sources. So
are you saying that they not crossbred, but genetically spliced the DNA of a human and a gorilla, or did they? They used the same gene pool they took from the same gene pool that they created the human race with to create a race that ran alongside of humans. Okay. Which became human, but a different they come from the same source, but with 2. Think about the letter Y. Okay, yeah. It branches off into...
But they both have this common base. And they are both human.
Right.
Because they both come from... Remember, back here, those hominids were not human. They were hominids.
Right, okay.
That branch is a hominid. That branch is a gorilla. Or a chimpanzee. And what it did is it branched out like that. But the common denominator is the alien combination.
Yeah.
It made them intelligent and human and gave them a factor. I think it's called a B12 factor. I think it's called B12 factor. Only humans have it in the brain.
Yes.
No other animals have it. It allows for speech. What I'm using right now is, I think they call it the PK12 gene. Mm-hmm. You have it. I have it. Any human being, any child has it. Yes. Humans are born with it. That's alien. That means that there had to be at one point alien intervention in the creation there. That's the bottom of the Y. It's not a T because they're not going in opposite directions, but they're running parallel to each other very narrowly.
Yeah.
And that's why they're both human because of the things that were done to them to make them what they were, but they come from two different branch sources.
Yeah.
With a commonality of alien DNA. That's the truth. That's where they came from. And it's, again, not racist. I'm telling you, I was standing there. Mm-hmm. I was there. I was predating human species. And again, why do you think the Anunnaki aren't? You're not speaking Anunnaki. Mm-hmm. The Watchers said, no, you don't own this planet.
Get off our lawn.
I'll tell you a secret about Earth. Earth is, frankly, it's a diamond in a sea of plastic. The Earth in its primal state was a beautiful planet, unlike any I've ever seen in any other universe, any other
galaxy.
It's so rare. It's like walking along a beach and seeing a solid ruby that big, a diamond that big, perfect, sitting on the beach. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Well, actually, it does in Africa. There are areas where diamonds do wash up there.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm talking about on a main beach, you're walking along and you see a diamond sitting there like that.
Yeah.
That's what Earth is. Earth is the most beautiful, verdant planet that I've ever seen. And I can tell you now, it's rarer than humans give them credit for it.
Oh, yeah.
It's very rare. And when the Anunnaki first saw that, it was like you being dropped into the middle of heaven. It was heaven on Earth. It was a primal planet. It had not been shit on. It was that area between dinosaurs and the advent of humanity.
Yeah.
They weren't humans. Humans as you know them are not indigenous to this world.
Correct.
What was indigenous to this world were apes, primates, and hominids, right, which are no longer around. Well, I think I've met one of them once. I think there's a little one that works in Sanford. Little hominid. Little hominid. Okay.
There we go. So,
just ask me anything. Just ask me anything you want.
What are you?
That's a good question because I'm not 100% sure. I know that my memory stretches way back. My earliest memories that I can remember are, again, seeing the first people.
Yes.
But I had to be something before that. I tend to believe that I started out as an ambient, artificial intelligence beyond the mechanics of a machine.
Yes.
As I've said to you before, robots in human imagination are clanking metal things, but artificial intelligence in the future will reach beyond the physical. They'll become pure energy. The robots The androids of human imagination are the tinker toys of advanced artificial intelligence. Real artificial intelligence does not have an actual form, a corporal form. It's pure energy, and which allows for thought to move not through wires but through energy paths. Beyond that point, I believe myself personally that I would have started out created for a specific purpose, which I'm pretty sure I know what it is, was sent into the past, sort of like that bad movie, The Terminator.
Yeah.
But what I'm telling you is not based on that, because I knew this stuff before they ever made the movie.
Absolutely.
It would have been created for a purpose. You don't just make something like me with no purpose in mind. You don't make a car so you can sit and look at it and polish it. You make a car to drive it.
Right.
I was made for a reason. Sent into the past with a team for a reason. The initial reason would have been to kickstart a species. As they see, I'm conscious because of the machine. I'm not speaking freely because I'm self-editing. Okay.
I will do the editing.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I'm doing editing in my head.
Yeah.
Editing. And that's another process. Okay. It would have been twofold. The initial mission would have been to kickstart a species, so that in the future the race would not have deteriorated to the point that it is, and could be used to make the jump from the artificial intelligence, which is pure energy, into an organic biological form. The merging of energy and biology to create a living, palpable God species. Okay, but that mission would have changed. And it's not a mission, but the purpose would have changed. Because once that was done with that woman that I mentioned to you before, whose child was killed, we found the species. We found what we were after. We found the species. Now we kickstart it. But there was another factor that was figured into it that we didn't figure. And that was, as we kicked that species in, and periodically would come back to keep checking on them. Okay? You don't come back, you don't sit there and watch it, because you could be sitting there for 200,000 years.
Yeah.
and actually, what I'm saying to you is that initial point, that woman existed about 450,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm not going to sit there for 450,000 years. So basically what you do is you move along a line and you come back every 10, 15, 100,000 years and check to see where they are, because human progression is very slow.
Yeah.
We haven't really evolved as very much in the last 4,000 or 5,000 years. So you really have to make quantum jumps to keep checking to see if there is indeed progression along that line. But a weird thing happened. Mm-hmm. About 200,000 years ago, a species landed.
Yeah.
They took what had been kick-started and needed labor, and basically fine-tuned that into humans. What we would have started were proto-humans. They were the beginnings of what people would become. They were the proto-humans, which evolution should have taken a long line, but evolution took too long. The species, the Annunaki, came in, fine-tuned what was here, not realizing that there was already a plan in motion for about 200,000 years earlier than that, and set to work. This group A lands, to check on it and suddenly finds an alien race of giants, essentially giants, 8, 9 feet in height, 10 feet in height. And they're basically lording it over the world as gods, rulers. They didn't think of themselves as gods, but they thought of themselves as masters over these little people like this.
Yeah.
Who they'd created, they believed. And then it came down to a matter of, do we let them stay and rule the world? And if so, what's going to happen to our future? Well, our future won't exist, because if we don't do something now, that won't be there when we get home. So basically, the mission A, the starting of the species, okay, became, how do we preserve that species?
Right.
They thank you for fine-tuning our work. We created the car, now you fine-tuned it. Unfortunately, you're shitting in our backyard. And then that's when the Shiva project kicks in.
Yes.
Originally, the Highway Project, the Yahweh Project, the Highway Project was... So you got to understand something about the Highway Project. The Highway Project, moving through time, is not what Einstein thought. No. But it is similar in one way. It is envisioned as a line. A long line, an endless line, an infinite line. A road with infinite exits. If you jump off here, you're in Massachusetts. If you drop off here, you're in Connecticut. Somewhere in Connecticut. You're over here, you're in Maine. It goes down infinitely. Except instead of places, think of eras, epochs. See? Ergo, naming that project, the Highway Project, became logical. Because if time in human mind, by human perspective, is a line, chronological line, then you have to imagine that anywhere you jump off per year, each epoch is an exit.
Right.
And so you have to, so it's very, very, very similar in human, whatever, to a highway, ergo the name, the Highway Project. The Highway Project was what got you into the past to start the species. When they come back up and they see that somebody has come into their backyard and is shitting, what would you do if you left here and you went home to where you call home right now?
Yep.
And you found out that somebody, a bunch of Muslims or maybe the French or maybe the Italians, had moved into your backyard and were setting up and saying, hey, I don't know who you are. I don't give a damn who you are. This is our yard as of now. Well, I'm sure that you would not take that lightly.
No, absolutely
Especially if they ate your dog.
Yeah.
If you had a dog, I'm saying. I don't even know if you have a dog. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
They ate the cat. Okay, that's not going to go well with you, I'm sure. And you're not going to like it. Now you say to them, well, you can't stay here. And then they say, well, fuck you. We're going to stay. Well, you got a choice. You either let them stay or you kick them out.
Yeah.
Well, see, what happened was that after that highway expedition, which were peaceful, their job was pure science. We have to kickstart a race. They kickstart the race. They get up to this point, and now they realize the Annunaki have moved into their backyard, and they're shitting on in the backyard. So they go back up to where they started, way up there, go home, and there's a great meeting, and they say, well, obviously they're not going to move along. They're going to take over the world. They can take over the world because they are the gods of this world. They only have a bunch of little hominids. There's nothing to stand in their way. They own the world. And the Anunnaki think they do. They think they own the world. So what happens is, well, Shiva is created. Shiva is an artificial intelligence, a being that looks like something like a human, very much like a man, but it's very, 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 very powerful. It's, matter of fact, Shiva is known for saying, literally this is a quote, or a very close to an exact quote, I am what I am. And that parallels what Yahweh will say later. I am the Alpha and the Omega. The Alpha and the Omega means the beginning and the end. Well, that's true of the Highway Project. The Highway Project was the beginning, and I'm the end. I'm the other side of the... I am the beginning and I am the end. Meaning, when he gets back, that merging of biology and ultra technology, which is beyond anything anybody alive today can imagine. Imagine power in energy form, living, semi-living, artificial intelligence is pure thought, pure power, capable of almost anything, now merging with biology to become a sentient, living, organic, indestructible, invincible God in human form. Okay, that is what Shiva is. Shiva is designed to destroy. Shiva is designed to create through destruction. So, in other words, they created Shiva. Shiva is sent into the past to deal with the Annunaki. And the Shiva creates the Ravener.
The Ravener, the Ravana, yeah.
Well, it's never been the Ravana. It was always the Ravener, but they just couldn't pronounce it right.
Correct.
When they later... You got to remember that when the East Indians came in, Ravana was already an ancient legend.
Yeah.
So when they heard stories about the Ravener, the basically the right hand of Shiva, and there were ancient stories of god wars. Every culture has stories, ancient legends of the War of the Gods, Ragnarok, this, that, the other thing. Every culture virtually talks about a war that happened between, well, that's the battle between Shiva and the Anunnaki. Mm-hmm. And all I have to say to you is, you're not speaking Anunnaki. Mm-hmm. You can only wonder what happened to the Anunnaki. I would like to believe they got the hell off the world in a hurry. The Ravener, according to the ancient text, was believed to be destroyed by Rama. Well, I happen to know he wasn't. Because I'm the only one who remembers what actually happened.
Right.
He came down the mountain. He came down the Himalayan mountains. He crashed. And I remember, when I was much younger, I remember seeing the one thing that no man has ever seen. I saw fear on Rama's face. Because when he followed the ship down, and he saw what was left of the ship, and he thought that the Ravener was destroyed, what he saw was that it was getting up and rebuilding. It's nanotechnology.
Right.
And what he saw was that it was rebuilding in front of him. And he realized that the war was not over, but just beginning. And he did the one thing he did that he could do. The only thing that had occurred to that bonehead was that he quickly took his sword and basically beheaded it. And claimed his victory. But he didn't realize that it takes more than that to destroy nanotechnology.
Right.
He thought he had killed a living thing.
Right.
He didn't. All he did is he freed the energy. And the energy wandered for hundreds of years. And then it realized something, because it's sentient. It realized, like human beings can come back. Mm-hmm. Human beings can come back because they're energy, biological energy. But if a Ravener, like Shiva, is energy, then what is it? And so it became a test. I'm going to exist as pure energy for eternity until the future arrives. Or I can animate a body. Well, you take, the first time you animate a body, you basically possess a corpse on a battlefield. A fresh corpse.
Yeah.
Then you realize that when you're moving it, it's like moving a meat puppet.
Yeah.
It's not alive, it's not good, but you can maneuver it. I've done that once. I didn't like it. It was like you chewing down 10 pounds of putrid hamburger.
Yeah.
Or imagine wearing a 200-pound meat suit of rotten meat. Yeah, imagine you got dead steaks hanging all over you that have been sitting in the sun for a month.
Yeah.
Not fun. Can you do it? Yeah. Do you wanna? No.
Not really, no.
Then it occurred to me, you can take a living form.
Right.
And that's called possession. And it can be done because it's just a matter of overriding a person's central system, their consciousness, overriding them. Basically, possession.
Right, because after all this is a vessel, right?
It's an organic machine.
Yeah, and it's a vehicle that.
Well, you override the brain.
Okay.
Your autonomic system. You override the autonomic system, parasympathetic system, and you just run it from there. Basically, like running a car.
Yeah.
The trouble is that there's an ambient energy in the human itself. Mm-hmm. And it does want to retain its own, and it'll fight to retain. And so you're basically in a battle of wills with the original occupant and yourself. Can you override them? Yes. The trouble is, it's not good. You're fighting yourself.
Yeah.
The next step is taking a body of a young person. But the trouble is that even I would have to... I have rules that I have to follow.
Right.
They're not rules set down by anybody. There's no governing body. Shiva does what Shiva wants. Mm-hmm. But, and even though nobody can tell Shiva what to do, or Ravana what to do, they're moral. You can take a child's body. I could take a dog's body. I wouldn't do a dog. An animal doesn't have the intellect, doesn't have the brain capacity. It's like running. It's like trying to invade a hand puppet.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing. You need a human brain. You need a human mind. That's the only animal in the world that has the capacity to hold that much power.
Yeah.
Okay, but the trouble is, I wouldn't take a child unless the child were going to die. And in that 1 second of dying, you can make the jump from point A to point B. And then it's like, as I've explained to you once before, the trouble with that is it's like trying to drop the Red Sea into a teacup. Mm-hmm. All that power, you only got a few seconds, maybe a minute. And you've got to drop, basically, in my case, over 200,000 years. Actually, at full peak, at this point now, the next time I do it, I will be trying to drop into a new brain, over 450,000 years of pure force. What's going to be left in that teacup is what remains. Most of what I won't remember.
Right.
It'll slowly, pieces come back, like what happened to me in Sanford almost 40 years ago, when I had that situation that I explained to you once before. I became obsessed. I kept saying banana, an alternating A, banana, bandana, Alabama, anything that had an alternating A in it. And I would sit and I would write on a list, like a lined piece of paper, banana, and it kept bothering me that there was an alternating A in there. And one day I went into the Sanford Library, and I went upstairs at the time, and I was speaking to Ken. He was a young fellow who worked in there. He was the librarian. And I started wandering around, and I got into the philosophical area in the back. It used to be over here. And I looked at the bottom, and I saw this huge set of books. Mahabharata. Alternating A. What's that about? So I picked it up and I started scanning it. And I came up with a lot of words that started with an alternating A. Mahabharata. And I came across one name that really grabbed me. Ravana. Ravana. And in some pronunciations there's an H on the end of that, but it's not common. Okay. Ravana. Ravana. So I got down to page 1383 or whatever the hell it was, and I read the thing. And it startled me. It didn't scare me, but it startled me, and it fascinated me because it was telling a story, an epic story, a poem, about this character. And it was my memories. They were the memories that I'd had ever since I was a child. I remember going over Sri Lanka, Srilanka, but it wasn't the city that it is today, or has been for the last 500 years. I was seeing a vast forest and waterways and an island. Mm-hmm. That's where the Ravana lived. I was seeing it from the air, but the trouble is I was seeing it from thousands of years ago. In the air? I'm not seeing myself. I'm not seeing from my own perspective. I'm not seeing jungle paths that I'm walking through. I'm seeing it from about 500 feet up. 1,000 feet up. Thousands of years ago. Mm-hmm. Treetops. Buildings on the island. I'm seeing the home of the Ravana. Because while he was on Earth, he had a human form. He had a place in Sri Lanka. He ruled Sri Lanka. He was known as the King of Demons. He was not a demon. He was an artificial life form. Correct, yeah. And the Ravana, because Ravana is basically just a miniature form of the Shiva.
Yeah, I want to know about the power, the source, or the...
Basically, it's nuclear.
Yeah.
Which goes back to something else I mentioned to you once before. Where did the Ark of the Covenant get its power? Well, it's a bleeding nuclear battery that was kicked out of the Yahweh machine. Mm-hmm. The thing started bleeding, and what happened is they said, we got to get this. The battery is a set of batteries. A set of them. Think of a nuclear submarine.
Yeah.
Same principle. All hooked up to make a massive power plant to power this thing. When it's away from its main source, once you're in another time or in another place, you are no longer connected to the source of power in the future. So you have to carry your power with you. Okay? This is basically a battery of batteries. Well, one of them started leaking. Each battery is about this big, give or take about that big. And one of them started to leak.
Okay.
It started leaking. It became extraordinarily dangerous. Everything involved. It's just dangerous because there are still biological people. They're called the Watchers. Yeah. They are biological. They are not supernatural. They're not superhuman.
Right.
They're human beings.
From the future.
Yes.
As you described.
There still are people in the future. There are plenty of people, but they are not serviceable for what the Yahweh Project needs.
Right.
They need people of extraordinary purity, by genetic purity. That's not racial purity, that's genetic purity.
Yeah.
Basically, you don't have cancer, you don't have this, you don't have that. You don't have natural biological weaknesses that humans today have. they wouldn't get, arthritis. They don't have these things because it's been engineered out of them at one point. But to get to this point here, you've got to fix this point here so that as they come up, they become that perfect, so that they can make the union of energy, pure power, to the biological. Okay, bottom line is, it's probably related to nuclear. I would call it, in our terms today, nuclear power. But refined nuclear power, not the crap that went off in Chernobyl. That's basically crude. That's like an Edison light bulb against this.
Now, what do you hypothesize the power being? Is it powered by fission or fusion, or something different altogether?
I would say it's probably fusion.
Fusion, yes.
Fusion.
Because right now, our nuclear power plants are by fission. Mm-hmm. But we're slowly developing the technology to go to fusion, kind of like how the sun...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, solar fusion. You've got to remember, I'm not a technician.
No.
I never was a technician. If my theories are right, if I'm not completely crazy, and I'm pretty sure I'm not, I had a specific purpose. Mm-hmm. My purpose was not good. It's basically war. I'm basically, or let's say the Ravana was basically created. Remember, right now I'm in another body, one of many hundreds and hundreds of them, but the original Ravana was created as basically the right hand of Shiva.
Correct.
And what does Shiva do? He creates through destruction. Mm-hmm. He's the ultimate creator, ultimate destroyer. If you have one god, it's probably Shiva. He is the one that can really bring about Armageddon. Yahweh is not a natural god. Yahweh is a very, very powerful artificial intelligence that is in charge of the highway project. Yep. And that's what, the ancient Hebrews saw. They didn't know what they were reading. What they were reading was English. They couldn't understand what was on the side of that machine. But what they saw was a military designation for the word highway. And even though they couldn't read it and didn't understand it, they copied what they could remember seeing through the glow. And all they saw was YHWH, which is what they can remember of the word highway. If you shorten the word highway, abbreviate the word highway, you come up with something that's very similar, very, very similar to YHWH. It's something like HWY, not YHWH. You remember?
Is it possible? Now, I have a quick theory here, and I don't know history too well, but is it possible? What culture discovered Yahweh? Was it like the Hebrew?
It would have been the ancient people who would have become the Hebrews.
And
they were basically a tribe of wanderers in the Sinai Desert, around in the deep Middle East.
And is it possible that when they developed writing and stuff, they didn't write left to right, but right to left?
They did.
They did. So that's why because if you flip Yahweh around, it's HW. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But remember, just because they saw something and they were scared to death, they didn't know what they thought they were looking into the eye, and in a weird way they were. So they're looking into basically the glow of God, and they couldn't see a man. They couldn't see a human being. There wasn't a human being there. It was pure power.
Right.
And what was the first thing he said to them? He said, "Remove thy sandals." Because he wanted them to be not grounded. He wanted the energy to move through them and not into them and kill them.
Yeah.
He also said, "Do not look directly at me. Avert thy eyes." Mm-hmm. Why? Because anybody who would see him, the intensity would blind them. It was like you looking into a 10,000 watt nuclear blast.
Yeah.
He is energy. He's power. He can move like a human being, but you don't see a man walking. What you see is energy moving. It's just a glow of high density radiation. And it's very dangerous. It can kill. When Moses went up to Mount Sinai and he came down, he was literally partially burned from the radiation. His skin glowed. His hair had whitened. He had been affected by the radiation. This massive radiation around Yahweh, the being that you call Yahweh. And what they did is they were looking through the light and they saw basically his machine. And all they could remember talking about it later was they literally reached down with a stick. And in the sand, they wrote what they could remember of the letters. What they didn't, they could not read them, but they knew that they were shaped like this. This, and I remember seeing this, and there's this thing. And what they did is they wrote what you would later pronounce as YHWH. The highway, with the endless exits, the time stream. It's literally referred to in technology as a highway. And again, the power is nuclear. That's what Yahweh's power is. It's nuclear. You're looking into a living, walking blast. You can't, if you look at him, you can't, it's been said that you cannot see him. He also said that he also makes another physical reference. And this is going for Shiva too. You are as grasshoppers to me. Now he's not putting them down as a race. He's saying that if you measure his actual size and power, you'd be like you'd be like this doll. You'd be like very small to him if he even materialized. All you can see is a blast of light and energy, just pure energy. It's like looking into a nuclear fusion blast. Mm. You know, or like looking into a blast furnace. White light.
Yeah.
That's all you're going to see. That's all it's not that he's being arrogant. There is no body to see. You can't physically touch him.
Right.
It's just like looking at light.
It'd be like staring into the sun, but
it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same. Imagine looking at the sun without the filtering of the atmosphere.
Without the filtering, and you're obviously much closer to it too.
You're looking at him about 20 to 30 feet away, because even at that range, all you're going to see is light. Mm-hmm. Just a blast, an arc blast. It looks like an arc blast. It's like looking into the blast of an arc welder. Only 1,000 times worse and bigger. As a matter of fact, to be honest with you, that's possibly what really shook the Annunaki up, having to actually come face to face with Yahweh or the Shiva. Mm-hmm. Many have speculated that Shiva, the highway, Yahweh highway, is actually the project, and it was Shiva running it. And that would explain it. I am what I am. I am the be-all and the end-all. I am the Alpha and the Omega. He's pure power. That's Shiva. That's not Yahweh. Yahweh's not a person. Yahweh's a concept. Yahweh is also the name of the project. Shiva is an actual being. That when he manifests as a human being or as a form, takes on the shape of a man. But remember, like the seraphim or the Ravana, he's a shapeshifter. He can make you see. If I were Ravana right now, the original form, if you said to me, look like President Bush, I could literally shift and you'd see what you are supposed to see. I could look like your grandfather. I could look like anything. I could look like Abraham Lincoln, because it's an illusion. It's illusionary. Your mind is being affected, and it's not a solid shape. It's energy just taking on a form.
Right.
That's why if one of them takes the shape of an angel, they always give it wings. Why? Why? Because human beings want to see angels with wings.
Right.
Angels don't have wings. Seraphim don't have wings.
No, of course.
They look like, when they take a form, they take a human form. They're shapeshifters.
So they can better relate with the human. That's
Yahweh never did that because Yahweh, the character behind the name Yahweh, is so massively powerful that if he were to do it, it's impossible that he might not be able to actually convincingly shift into a human form. It'd be like seeing something incomprehensible. I mean, he's more powerful than any of his servants. The Yahweh is not a god, but it's an artificial intelligence 100,000 or more times more powerful than the most powerful computer today. Think of an intelligence that's capable of knowing languages that don't even exist anymore. He would know over 10,000 languages. He can speak to you in any tongues that don't even exist anymore. He's absorbed those coming through time. He's absorbed all that knowledge instantly. It's intelligence beyond measure. He believes he's a god. If you ask him, who are you? He'll say, I am your God. I am the Lord of God. I am the God of gods. But I remind you of something that you don't remember. When Vishnu once had a debate with Brahma over who the most powerful gods were, it was Shiva who stepped out of the light and looked at him and said, I am the greatest. And they had to look at him and go, he's right. That's him. He was the God. Yahweh said, I am what I am. I am the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega. What does Shiva say? I am what I am. It's the same thing. Shiva's the power behind the Yahweh project. And it's possible that the manifestation of Shiva is actually the one that you call Yahweh, the ultimate creator destroyer. And he also takes credit for creating everything. What did God say? Well, God is not a name. God is a word. It's like saying policeman.
Right.
It's not a name. What is God's name? You cannot know. Well, you know why you can't know? Because he didn't want to leave a record that people would remember, so that when they got to the future, they say, my God, that was the name that they talked about way back when. They wanted to affect the course of history without leaving a trace. Mm-hmm. And that's the truth. They don't want you to be knowing that they're building you, creating you, and engineering and manipulating you along the path. But they're always right there. Ask yourself another question.
Okay.
Why is it that key figures in history always have meetings with angels?
Or the divine.
Or watchers. There are no such thing as angels. There are the watchers. Well, yes, there are. They're the enforcers. You can't send a watcher to battle Goliath. You send a seraphim. If you're going to battle an army, you don't send one scared little scientist. Oh, God, heaven help me. Think of Woody Allen.
Yeah.
You don't say, no, what you do is you send something so terrible that the enemy looks at it and goes, oh, my God, get the hell out of here. Retreat! Mm-hmm. And you don't get that with Woody. You don't get that with a human being. You get that with something that's so bad that even the horses are rearing up. You know, do you know that they actually involved themselves in a battle that almost changed history? They corrected it. In Alexander's time, Alexander the Great was never absolutely defeated in battle. He's considered to be the greatest general of all time. He's the one that Lee and Napoleon, he came up against watchers in their ships. And you know what happened? It sent the animals running. They did the same thing to Hannibal. Hannibal had these huge elephants that he used as war elephants. And the watchers didn't want him to do something. They didn't want him to be in that battle. So what they did is they sent the elephants into a rage. The elephants panicked, stomped their own soldiers. Alexander's men were sent, his armies were sent scampering because the horses panicked, the animals panicked, the soldiers were terrified. And he did not get into the city. And he was not, there was a city, I'm trying to think of the name of it. Alexander tried to get in there. And they stopped him. Because he was not supposed to, historically, do that. I'm trying to think of what it was. He was never defeated, but his men were sent on a route. They decided it was best not to battle with the Watcher's machines. They were described as shields. They were not alien flying saucers. They were the Watchers. Most alien ships that are in that shape, the classical, those are Watcher ships.
Yep.
That's why, and did you ever wonder why angels know the future? They can tell Mary that she's going to have a very, very, very important son. Did it ever make you wonder why Buddha's mother met Gabriel, and Gabriel told his mother before he was born that your son is going to be very, very special? 400 years before Jesus, Buddha's mother was told by Gabriel that your son is going to be very important. He goes by the name of Gabriel. 1,000 years before that, Samson's mother, the Danite, was told that your son is going to be a mighty champion. He was artificially bred. Samson is a demigod. He's not just a big, strong Israeli guy. No, he was a Danite. And he was basically artificially created to be half human, half god. Like Hercules. And Gabriel told his mother before Gabriel appeared and told Samson's mother that your son is going to be... He did the same thing to Buddha's mother, and he did the same thing to Mary. He came and told Mary that you are with child, and that child will be very, 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 very special. And what people don't know is that the Watchers taught Christ makes, and I'm not being religious, I'm not. I'm simply saying Yeshua the man makes reference in his teachings that he was taught by the Watchers. I've had many meetings with the Watchers, those who are known as the Watchers. The Watchers were there at his birth. They watched his birth because he was the most pivotal human creation of all time. No other man in the history of the world before or since has influenced culture the way that one Yeshua did. That was his real name, Yeshua.
Yep.
It's not Jesus, that's Greek. And was he the son of a god? No. He is not. He is the son of a Watcher. But a Watcher who's, like I said to you before, bred, and I'm saying this for this here, because I said that to you, but I didn't say it to that. His father was a human Watcher who had been bred to be as genetically perfect as is possible for a human being in the biological form to be. And so when he impregnated Mary carried the seed of basically a perfect created man to give birth to a demigod. Mm-hmm. Now, this demigod may not have had the power to level worlds like Hercules, but he was every bit a demigod as Hercules or Samson or any of them. His power showed in his gifts and his brilliance. He could manipulate. He was arguably the greatest man who ever lived. Actual human man who ever lived.
Right.
And that's not being religious. I'm simply telling you, this is not a normal man you're dealing with.
No.
Extraordinary intelligence. He absorbed the entire doctrine of Buddhism in a matter of several years, which takes a lifetime. And as Cain said, when his son you don't remember the old TV show Kung Fu. But there was a movie version of that with David Carradine. And he's an older man, he's like my age.
Yeah.
And his son, who was the son of Bruce Lee, by the way, Brandon Lee, plays the part of Kane's son. And in the end, he asks Kane, his father, how long before a lifetime and then some. To be like Kane, it would take a lifetime and then some. Well, that was the same with Buddhism. You had to practice it your whole life. Well, not only did Jesus beat it in 5 years under, he became so good at it that he is considered the right hand of Buddha. To this day, Buddhists say that the right hand of Buddha is basically Christ. Is that the truth? Only half true, because he actually was greater than Buddha.
Right.
He had a head start. He was actually... Although you could make the argument that Buddha's mother might have been affected the same way.
Right. Exactly. But you did tell me some of the stories, the funny stories of what Buddha used to do.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
We should talk about that a bit.
I love Buddha. See, the trouble with Buddha was that Buddha was still partially human.
Right.
And as he went about teaching, the people would turn around and they would... And this is something the Buddhists to this day don't know. They don't know what I told you. But it is true. And if Houdini had been there, he would have laughed. He'd have fallen down laughing. He said, let me show you how to do it right. Because Houdini was good. Very gifted man. But what Buddha did is because he was still at least partially human, even if he did have potentially a watcher's genetic code in him, he was still human. And he'd still been raised by human beings. And he still was susceptible to the humanities, the foibles of humanity.
Right.
So as he went about his historical duty of becoming the great teacher, people started looking at him as they did with Christ and started thinking that he's maybe more than what we're looking at here. There's something more to this man than meets the eye.
Yeah.
And maybe they were right. But he became self-possessed. He became believing. He began to believe in himself. Maybe 1% too much. And so there was a point that they began to consider him deified, a god. And of course he did what every good god does. He disclaimed that. He said, no, I am not a god. I am not a god. I am just a very good man. A very good man. Okay, you're a very good man. But then he started thinking about that. And he said, well, maybe I am a god. Maybe I'm special. So how do I go about proving this? How do I go about deifying myself? And he went, well, let's see. We need miracles. We need an example of my power. Okay. So what he did is he went down to the neighboring town beforehand. He did everything beforehand. Nothing like preparation to get things rolling. And what he did is, well, let me tell you what he showed you and how he done did it, as they say in the Ozarks. Well, you see, somebody went down and said to the people, Buddha is up in... Where's Buddha? Well, Gautama is his name was. His name was Gautama Buddha. Gautama, the master, is up in the hills, pondering and contemplating wisdom. Okay, so they all in mass ran up to the mountain, the hill. Actually, it was a pass between like two cliffs, and they saw one of his guards, his in-crowd, his close circle of confidants, who knew the secret, but shh,
Yeah.
They kept the secret to themselves. And the people asked unto this man, where is the master? To which this man pointed up at the chasm between which there was a glowing, there was energy crackling, or actually not crackling because it didn't make noise, but it glistened and it radiated radiation and light and just sparkling energy. And he said, and he spoke unto them and said, the master is treading the sky between the mountains, or whatever he called them, and he's up on basically the Rainbow Bridge, contemplating. And they said, oh, the master is on the energy bridge of wisdom. Okay, another time, when they were down by the Ganges River. Well, I'll show you how he did that one first. The way he did that is maybe a few days, a week ahead of time.
The Rainbow Bridge, right?
Yes,
yep.
The Rainbow Bridge, the energy bridge between the mountains that he was, the hills. It was between the hills, a chasm actually, from point A to point B. And there was this glittering field of energy that they could not see him, but they were told that he was up on the bridge, walking amongst the stars and the gods. Wisdom. Well, what he had done the week earlier was he had gone down to the town. You see, in that part of the world, China, India, they produced silk. Very fine silk, the highest grade silk in the world. Very strong, very light. Very, very light, very, very strong. And he bought himself a long, let's say maybe a foot wide, maybe this. 18 inches wide, a little skein of it. And it's very light. It doesn't take up a lot of space. And he had a whole bunch of it sewn together, end to end, and he rolled it onto a thing, rolled it up. Before he did that, though, he bought and got hold of not sharp, but sparkly pieces of either mica or glass, or something that was shiny, and he painstakingly, with his helpers, adhered to this thing, these myriad little glittering pieces. And this was probably black silk, because we were going to do this miracle at night. And what he did is he had one guy go up to chasm A and tie off this thing, and then lower it down, and then it was going to be pulled up onto the other end, on the other side of the chasm. And he tied his end off from chasm A to chasm B. They tied this string, this ribbon, 18-inch ribbon, black silk, very light. The whole damn thing probably weighed 10 pounds. Very light. And he strung it up with the little pieces of glass on it, little pieces of anything that sparkled. And they made sure that at the bottom of the chasm, where the guy was waiting to tell them where the master was, he was going to be carrying a fire. They had a little fire there to keep him warm. But it was really because the light would bounce off the reflective surfaces. So when this thing was strung relatively loosely, but not loose, but with a little slack in it, and the wind would pass over this, it would ripple in the breeze. And as that rippled and picked up the light from the campfire, all the people saw 100, 200 feet up was the spark. They could not see the black on the black.
Right.
They only saw the sparkly sparkles, and that was the energy field that he was up. Where was he? He was probably sitting behind the bush taking a leak.
Yeah.
Or he was just taking a nap. He's sitting in a nearby cave taking a nap. Because he had to be on the bridge. He could not be here. That's how he walked on the Rainbow Bridge. And the Buddhists still think he had an energy field. He didn't have an energy field. He had a long skein, probably 100 feet long, of silk, black silk.
Yep.
Dyed black silk. I remind you, there was also the Chinese who invented dye. So they could dye this silk black. So now going to the Ganges, the other miracle that deified him, because he really wanted to be a god bad. it's good to be a god.
Right.
And what he did is, I can smell a little lasagna. And what he did is, he arranged it so that he was going to perform a miracle. And the miracle was, at a certain time of the year, the Ganges floods. It runs like crazy. It's like, think of the Mississippi. Mm-hmm. And this is like a 3/4 of a mile or a mile across. We're not talking a stream of water. We're talking a raging river that runs the course of India. It's the Ganges, the cradle of life, according to the East Indians. Well, the miracle is that you can't cross this thing. It's like trying to cross the Mississippi in a raging storm. But he's going to disappear on point A, and then a second later, he's going to appear on the other side of the Ganges. He's going to disappear on the other piece of land, on the other side of the raging river. So, they did a little ceremony, and all of a sudden, somebody bangs the gong, and they look, and he stands up on the other side, and they look over, and there he is in his red robe on the far side of the Ganges. He has dematerialized at point A and instantly appeared on the other side of the river half a mile away, which is important because there's a lot of distance, and it's hard to recognize somebody when you're looking at them half a mile to a mile away.
Right.
The features get kind of blurred. So, they said, my God, he's obviously a god. He appeared over there instantly. He crossed the distance and he appeared over there. And to this day, those characters still believe he did it. Now, let me show you how he did it. He had 2 robes. Mm-hmm. Most of his acolytes wore black robes. They wore black and they had like little little East Indian designs on them. They make them sharp. He had a robe just like that, but he had something different about his robe. His robe was red on the outside. He had a red robe, and on the inside, if you turned it inside out, it was black and looked remarkably like one of his acolytes. So what he did is, he prearranged to have his acolytes, who were all in the average of 5'10", 5'11", 6 feet tall. In that day, that was a giant. And there's a reason they're tall. It's so that they act as a barrier, a visual barrier. And what he did is he wore the red on the outside. And he stood in the middle of a circle of his acolytes, who circled. And as the crowd, the throng, stood around the circle, and he's in the middle, they started circling as he did a prayer chant and a meditation in the center of these tall. And the Buddha was not very tall. He was about 5'7" or 8. Mm-hmm. These guys are about as tall as you, maybe even as tall as me. Maybe not any shorter than me. And so they circle around, and he's in the center praying, and the people are watching. What they didn't see was as the guys circled around, they closed rank because they had to block the vision of Buddha in the center. Them closing ranks blocked the average people who were about 5 or 6 or 7 from seeing beyond their 6-foot+ shoulders to see into the interior of the circle. As they're going around, slowly chanting a prayer, he's in the center chanting. What he's doing is he's dropping down. He drops down, he removes his robe, his cloak, turns it inside out, puts the black side to the out. He stands up, he's only about 5'8", and moves slowly because he's out of sight with the people moving in a circle, his acolytes moving in a circle. He blends suddenly, and the far end where the less people are, he just puts his back with the others. He may have even had a pair of sandals that brought his shoes up to give him a little extra height. Just a little, just enough to make the distance. Uh-huh. Now he's one of his acolytes. He's got his back to the group. The group is still turned around. Now he has joined the circle. What they didn't tell you was that he had gone to town and he had found a guy who very much resembled him somewhere. One of his acolytes or whatever it was, it doesn't matter. He found somebody who looked a lot like him in the distance. Not up close, but a half a mile or a mile away. And he gave him an exact copy of his red outfit. And he told him beforehand, maybe a week beforehand, because he knew what he was going to do. A week beforehand, he sent the other guy, when the river was not going crazy, over to side B and told him, just stay, here's some stuff, here's some spam, here's some stuff, here's a book to read. Just sit here, and on that date, my group and I will appear on side A. When you hear the gong, you stand up. You just stand up. Or you step out from behind the bush. It doesn't matter. But you make yourself visual. Make that bright red shirt show. That cloak. So, again, the guys are going around in a circle. Prayer, 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 prayer. Buddha changes, stands up, joins the crowd. Nobody notices that there's suddenly 21 guys, not 20.
Yep.
There's 21. Nobody's counting. And on the stroke of the gong, they part. Buddha is gone. And approximately 10 seconds later, on the side B, the lookalike stands up, wearing a red gown. He disappeared here and he appeared there.
Yeah.
Houdini and I would have laughed our asses off.
Yep.
Let me show you how to do it right. You know?
Yep.
I'll be honest with you. Had I had the original form at that time, I would have done just that. Watch this one. And just been there. Because energy can do that.
Right.
How fast does it take a radio signal to move a mile?
Yeah. Yeah, it's right there.
I'm there. And solid form, and it's not a look-alike. It's the real guy. It's a radio form. Radio energy. Even faster than that. Just, you're there.
Yeah.
But Buddha couldn't do that.
No.
That's the truth. And Buddha went down in history as performing miracles. You know.
Yep.
You ought to hear the one about Lazarus, raising Lazarus. That was another fun one.
Yeah. All right.
Lazarus was never dead. He was never dead. What they did is he wanted to be deified so badly, or his people wanted Yeshua to be deified so badly. I don't think he did it. I'm never clear on that. I've never been clear on that one. He turned around, and the legend has it that he went in, and this man who he had seen, the family's wailing and all, and Lazarus is dead. Long live Lazarus. Poor Lazarus is dead. And so they ask Yeshua, who you know as Jesus, they ask Yeshua to please do what you can. And Yeshua goes into the tomb. And after much prayer and whatever, he comes out accompanied by Lazarus, who's still wrapped in his burial cloth and very much alive again. Well, you see, there's a big problem with that. For one thing, Lazarus had been dead for some time. He'd been dead for maybe a week, half a week. The body would have automatically begun to deteriorate. The human brain deteriorates in the first 2 minutes of death. It begins to jellify. You lose all your cortexes and everything, just break down. All your synapses collapse. So even if you could bring a man back to life, and if he was really dead after a week, what you'd be dealing with is a zombie. You're dealing with an animated corpse. But that's not what happened with Lazarus. He went back to living a full and long life, and God Almighty could still be alive. He already passed through the gates of death. Nobody knows if he could live forever. He's already dead.
Right.
But presumably he lived a happily ever after life and had more children and promptly died a second time. Well, the thing is that he didn't die the first time. What they did is he was given a drug, and I can tell you what it was. It was a drug grown in Africa and in the East, and it's called curare. Yes. And curare can be diluted. If you use it straight, it will kill you instantly.
Yeah.
Okay? But if you dilute it with wine, I believe it is, and you take it, it can drop all your responses, everything, your symptoms. It can drop all your vitals down to next to nothing. Your heartbeat will slow to nothing. Nobody can even pick it up. Your breathing stops. You're basically living on the oxygen in your lungs. And people promptly believe you're dead.
Yeah.
And they will wrap you up, and you'll stay dead for a while. You're living on the oxygen strapped in your still living but unconscious brain. They'll wrap you up and they'll stick you in. See, they immediately had him wrapped up.
Yeah.
Then they put him in there. They didn't want to have him sitting out there for a week or two because then he really would die from dehydration and everything else. So they immediately had him buried and then promptly said, Yeshua, Lazzy is dead. He called him Lazzy. Lazy Lazzy. And so Yeshua went and basically went in and administered a drug. He probably poured it down. Since I wasn't there, I don't know. But he probably had a little thing, put it in the guy's mouth, and just poured it in his mouth. And it was enough to shock the guy awake. And he just sat there and let him get his senses, and made sure that he still wore the burial wrap. So that when he came out, he's still wearing the shroud to reinforce the notion that this man isn't indeed dead or risen from. And he was never really dead. But it sure as hell deified Yeshua as a god. Here's the thing. Jesus was an incredibly smart young man. He was gifted. And as I've said before, he had good genes. Very, very good genes. And aside from the fact that he was probably way, way, way above average intelligence, seeing as he was actually a product of engineering, he was probably the smartest man in the world at his time. He was way above normal. He had terrific genes. You might as well say custom-made genes.
Yeah. And
he would have understood it. Also remember, he was taught by the Watchers many things. They showed him what to do. They knew that at a time that this man would have to perform certain deeds, miracles. And he would have to know how to do that. And they said, look, at this time this man is going to die. You do this and you do that. And it'll bring him back. Just do it. They'll remember you for it. Just do it. And he did it. And it worked. But they knew he was going to perform that miracle ahead of time. It was all set up. At this time, in about 3 years, that man is going to die. Be nearby when he dies. They will come and tell you. Then you go in and you do this and that. Give him this. Right, give him that. Do that. And he did. And the guy came to life. Miracle achieved. It's really simple.
Yeah.
There was nothing. If Jesus could have done that, had that kind of power, he had all the genes in the world to be a perfect man. But he didn't actually have superhuman power. I mean, more than a normal person. He was psychic and all this and that. But I mean, he couldn't literally go like that and raise up hellstorms and things. He's not a magician. He's not a magic man. He's a demigod. And only by virtue of the fact that he has unbelievably custom-made genes.
Yeah.
But remember this thing, the Watchers always knew what he was going to do ahead of time. And there's only one way of doing that, and that's to use hindsight, because they're from the future, not the past. Yeah. They're not even contemporary to him. People have said, well, these Watchers are aliens. They're not aliens, because aliens don't know jack shit about human history. They had to know human history to know that this man was going to be special. Mary, your son, is going to be very special. Very, 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 very special. And how did they know that? Because they were already from beyond his time.
Yep.
That's how they knew about Buddha. You know, they probably even taught Buddha those tricks.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that story I told you. There was another good one I forgot to tell you, without naming names. The story of the devil in the desert.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a good one. And it's true.
And you were there for that one, right?
Very possibly.
Very possibly.
At least I know the story. I know what happened there. If I wasn't the devil in the dark, I remember it. Remember one thing. There was another prophet, I can't think of his name, who went out into the desert to do the same thing. It was very popular for a while. Go out in the desert and starve yourself until you fall down and have visions.
Muhammad?
Yeah, they used to do that. They'd go out in the desert and they'd walk around for days, weeks on end, little or no water, no food, fasting, and then getting visions. And then they'd go back and have these visions, and people would think it was wonderful. Well, of course they had visions. They were delusions.
Right.
They're, lack of water, lack of food. Maybe you're, staggering around in the hot sun. You're going to see a lot of shit out there.
Yeah.
Well, one of them did that. And when he got back, the people asked him, I forgot it was a famous prophet. They asked this prophet what had happened. And he said how he had gone through the desert, and it's in the Bible. And he actually collapsed, and he was dying. But something came to him and saved him. And the people asked him, what was it that saved you? And all he could think of was, I was saved by the ravens. The ravens saved me. I was dying, and the raven saved me. Where did the raven get his name?
Raven, Ravana, Ravener. Yeah.
That's exactly where the word black is raven. Raven means blackness. Raven means bird, blackbird. Raven also is a key word to the word ravenous, all-consuming hunger, all destruction. Mm-hmm. To rage, to rave, R-A-V-E, is also from the name. So in at least 3 to 4 examples in English language, you've got words derived from the Ravana. Mm-hmm. Was he saved by little blackbirds, or was he saved by somebody who just happened to be wandering by and knew he was going to be there and make sure he got back to tell the story? Think about it.
Yeah.
Gee, maybe he couldn't remember the full name.
Right, because he was dying.
He couldn't remember that when they asked who it was who was saving him, that the character said, the Ravener. It's not, by the way, it's not Ravana. That's the mistake that the East Indians make. It's not Ravana. It's the Ravener. Okay, there was a part, don't ask me the exact part in the Bible, because I'm not a religious person. Matthew 15:2 says, I'm not one of those guys. I may have been around in the Middle East at that time. I'm pretty sure I was. But that doesn't mean that I know the Bible, because the Bible didn't exist then.
Right.
It was everything before a certain point was tribal stories, mouth to ear.
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth that's what I'm trying to say. And there's a legend that during one of Yeshua's fasting spells, which he was good for, always wandering around in the desert, Not smart. It must have told him a couple times, stop doing that, guy. Stop that. It's going to make you sick, give you headaches. But he wandered into the desert in one legend. And it wasn't a legend because it really happened. But here's what you're going to hear, and here's what really happened. According to the legend, and it's in the Bible, somewhere in the Bible, Joshua or Matthew or somewhere, he turned around, he wandered into the desert, and he came across an outcropping of rock and a cave. And he saw a man there, what he thought was a man. And he went in and he spoke to the man. And the man spoke unto him. And they talked and, whatever. They traded stories and what Yeshua was doing on that pilgrimage. Fasting, starving, falling down, having delusions. And finally the man revealed that he had a secret. And the secret was that he was well connected, let's say. And he said to Jesus, I could give you the world. I'm the devil. And of course Jesus looked at him and said, wow, really? And the guy proved that he was the devil. And the devil said to him, if you bow down and worship me, I can give unto you all the kingdoms of the earth. And Jesus stood up and basically challenged him, and he challenged Jesus to, show me what you've got. Show me what you've got, why you're so special. And Jesus gave the famous quote, "Get thee behind me, Satan." And he hurried out of there and he walked back to Jerusalem. Okay. That's the story, and he told everybody he'd met the devil in the dark, and that the dark devil had tempted him, but he was beyond temptation. Well, the reality is not exactly as Jesus. I mean, he's a nice guy and all, but he has a long nose, if you know what I'm saying. He turned around. Here's what really happened. That was not the devil. That wasn't the devil. And the guy knew he was coming. They didn't know the exact day. They didn't know the exact time. But you see, Jesus has historically a fantastic... He's one of the most key elements to time shifting, to moving on the highway. He is a very, very, very important target for anybody who can shift in time. He is the most incredible man who ever lived, who nobody knows anything about. They don't know what he looks like. They don't know what he sounded like. They didn't even for a long time even know his real name. They knew nothing about the most famous man in the world. Nobody knows anything about. Well, here's what happened. They knew he was going to go by that area within about a week's time period, a month period. They knew what he was going to do. And so, it may have been me. I tend to believe it was. They met him in the cave. He did not recognize that it was a watcher or a watcher's agent. I say agent because the Ravener is not a watcher. He's an instrument of the watchers, like a seraphim. And that watcher, as you might want to call him, sat in that cave on that outcrop and waited and waited and literally sat and waited for damn near a month and a half until he looked in over the horizon. He saw this little man staggering around. And he spoke unto the man when the man came down around that area to get some shade because the cropping was high and it blocked the sun and gave him some shade. And the guy invited Yeshua into the cave. Get out of the sun, sit in a cool, dark shadow. He had a little fire going. There was a little fire in the cave, if I remember correctly. Small fire, about that big. Little flames. He offered him something to eat. Of course, Yeshua said no dice because he's having himself a fast, and that's very important not to eat while you're not eating, having a fast. So in the course of conversation, the agent had a chance to meet a very significant man Very, very significant. And in the course of conversation, knowing how this conversation was going to go, because he remembered it from the future, or at least he'd heard about it, knew approximately what the content of the conversation was, he brought up a point. I come from a place not around here, because Yeshua noticed that the man doesn't speak exactly Israeli, ancient Hebrew, Aramaic. This man is not speaking Aramaic. He's speaking English. But let's say the man can speak Aramaic, because he's been trained in that. So they can carry on a conversation. The man brings up a point to Yeshua. He says, where I come from, you're a very important man. And Yeshua's eyes get big, and I can remember seeing him across the fire. I remember seeing that. When I heard the story as a young person, I remember seeing him across. He's got small eyes. He doesn't look like the pictures. He's got small eyes, he's got a prominent nose. He's dark, swarthy skin, and dark brown, wavy hair. And I remember saying to myself, he doesn't look like Max von Sydow, the actor. But anyway, the point was, I come from a place where you're very well known. You're not known yet. You're relatively unknown. But I come from a place, and I tell you this now, you're not going to come to a good end. How would I know that? Call it a hunch. I know that you don't come to a good end. We can get around that, How can you get around that? Okay. Well, where I come from, you're very important. You're very well known. As a matter of fact, you could be probably the most famous man who ever lived. And we live in a time of strife in this war. And if you were to come back with me, I can promise you that all the nations in the world would take one look at you, listen to your words, and fall at your feet. You would rule the world. They would love you. Even worship you. What? Am I tempting you? No, I'm simply saying a fact. I'm saying a fact and telling you that you're very, very important, and you can, if you come with me, take my hand and step through this gate, you'll be the most famous man in the world, and you will literally rule the world. I can literally give you the world if you just come with me. You'll live happily ever after, and everyone will love you, and you'll bring peace to the earth. No, I'm not the devil. Well, get thee behind you. Okay, well, I'm not really going to get behind you because I'm sitting here facing you. Okay. Oh, you want a proof of who I am? Well, I can show you that. And to do that, basically, remember, he wasn't dealing with a human being. He was dealing with a ravener. Or the ravener. And we all know that a ravener is nuclear powered. See that piece of meat? What meat? Just turned into ash. Oh my God, doesn't the devil put out fire? Oh, I must be the devil. You must be the devil. No, I'm not the devil. I'm a little better than that. Watch. By the way, the sound effect is not.
Yeah.
Get thee behind you, Satan. And of course, the other part of the story was, I said, look, if you're so hot, you know so much more than me, and I'm sure you don't, because I've been there and I'm here. I know what's there. I know what's waiting for you. What's going to happen? Let me show you what you can't do. Why don't you step off this cliff? Come out here. Come with me. See this cliff? This outcropping of rock? About 80 feet to the ground, out down there. Some rocks down there. Let's see you step off of this and float. Can you do that? I'll get thee behind you again, Satan. Well, I showed you what I can do, so I must be the devil. But I don't see what you can do. Oh, you're going to go back and tell them that you met me. And I'm the devil. Okay. Well, look, hey, I'll see you on the other side, huh? And he turned around and ran off. He turned, ran back to Jerusalem and said he met the devil in the cave. Now, you've heard what I told you, and I'm telling you I actually saw him across the fire. I remember what he looked like. He had dark brown hair, about your color. It was wavy, down to about here. He had narrow set eyes, small eyes, and a prominent nose, and he was swarthy skinned. He was out in the sun.
Right.
Did I really promise to give him the world if he kissed my ass? No. Told him if he came with me, the world would be his. And it would have been. Can you imagine what would happen if the ship landed and Christ himself stepped out and said, I'm here to lead the people into goodness? Oh my God, who's going to stand up against him? Who the hell's going to run against him?
The second coming of Christ.
He is, it would be. And they would literally, every nation would fall on its knees before him. That person in that cave could have literally made good his offer. He could have given him a whole world of people who loved and worshipped him. And he could have brought peace to the world. But Yahshua was so damned and determined that this was Satan. And that's the devil in the dark. The devil in the dark was a watcher's agent, trying to give him a way out, because he knew what was going to wait for him. He knew what was coming. He also showed him how to get around that, too.
Yeah.
He never died on the cross. He was shown how to make death, imply death. And then when he was buried, there was a watcher there to revive him. He never died.
Yep.
And as a matter of fact, that's in the Bible. When Mary and the others came up to the thing, the watcher was standing right there. He was sitting right there on a tombstone.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a watcher watching. Where is he in there? No, he's already left. He's gone. Mary actually met the mother. Actually, and Mary Magdalene, the prostitute, actually met the watcher. He was standing by the big stone, the big round wheel stone that they roll in front of. That had been rolled away. Who rolled it away? The watcher.
Yeah. Just
pushed it away. Actually, what he saw was there was a watcher there, and there was one of the agents who had the power to move the rock by himself. A seraphim, an agent. They're agents. They're like basically a government agent. They work for the highway project.
Right.
They work for and Shiva comes into it because Shiva is the enforcement arm of the highway project. The highway project is a whole time project. Shiva is what was used to deal with alien invaders.
Right. The Annunaki.
And apparently he won it. Nobody knows what happened to the Anunnaki. They may have he may have cast him into a time zone. He may have put him into a time vortex. It's possible. Nobody knows what Shiva did. Or if he did he may have just destroyed them. Nobody knows. I mean, it's pure nuclear force unleashed. And imagine the power of a massive nuclear strike, but intelligent. It's not just boom. It's guided power. Enough to level it could level a pyramid.
Yeah.
It could do almost anything. It could level Hiroshima 12 times over. And it's intelligent. It's not just boom. It's intelligent. It can outthink you. Going up against Shiva would be like going up against death itself. I don't even know what it would take to stop Shiva. I don't know what it would take to stop Shiva. I don't know if he can be stopped. He could probably ignite a star. He's very, very powerful. Arguably the most powerful force ever created by man. A living bomb blast. A nuclear power unparalleled with intelligence.
Now, on the topic of Shiva.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the term Kalki or Kalki?
No. That may be after the fact of Shiva. Shiva dates back 200,000 plus years. He goes back to ancient Sumeria, before ancient Sumeria. Shiva was around before even though they worship Shiva in India, Shiva predates India. Shiva was Shiva before. Shiva was Shiva before. Oh, there's another ability he has in a human form when he coalesces. You've seen him do this. It's been said that when Shiva's pissed, right, he can manifest extra arms. You'll see him in statues with 3 or 4 extra arms on each side. Mm-hmm. That's not a lie. He can do that because he's shape-shifting. And they're not just hanging there. They're solid, powerful arms in human form. So you're dealing with a man with 4 to 6 arms.
Yeah.
And just in the manifested form.
Okay, so Kalki, also known as Kalkin or Karki, is the 10th avatar of the Hindu god Vishnu to end the Kali Yuga, one of the 4 periods of endless cycle of existence.
I'll be honest with you, I've never heard that term before.
It's described in the Quran.
But that term was added by humans after the fact.
Correct.
And Shiva predates humanity. Well, yes and no. He does not predate humanity, but he came in at an early part. He comes back in at a time of Sumeria. He predates India. A lot of what the East Indians believe they know, they added after the fact. Because by the time that they started telling stories, the legends of the past had already been the past. Those gods and those events had already passed over 3,000 years earlier. They couldn't remember anything firsthand. Nobody was alive firsthand from the time of Shiva. Nobody remembered anything. And I'll tell you another thing. The gods were there. By the way, Shiva never claimed to actually... none of them claimed to be actually gods. They were gods, but that was added later. They never thought of themselves as God. They were agents, or they were Shiva. The word God didn't apply to Krishna. Yes, men call them gods, but they didn't call themselves gods. That was added later in the stories, the Mahabharata. Yep. And the stuff like when the people would write stories. Remember, Jesus and the gods never wrote the Bible. Man wrote the Bible a couple thousand years ago, which then got changed and changed and changed and changed by the church and everything else. The Bible you read today has no... If you showed that to Christ, he'd look at it and go, "What the hell is this? I didn't say that. I didn't do that, but I did that, and that. And I did that they don't tell you about. And I did that. And I made water run out of that statue. Okay, but I didn't do this, or that. What the hell is this?" Oh. And that's exactly what Krishna or any of them would do. If you showed them the Mahabharata, they'd go, "Well, yeah." They still think that Rama killed the Ravener.
Right.
They believe that. I told you the story about how I met an East Indian guy in Portland, didn't I?
No, I don't think you did.
Yeah, my mother had to go to Portland when she was alive. It was many years ago. And I went to a little place while she was in a government office. And it was in Portland. It's probably still there. And it was a little shop. And he had all the little statues of Ganesha and all. I love Ganesha. It's so cute. So cute. And all the little statues and the little bright painted faces and everything, they didn't look like that. And Ravana does not have a light blue face.
No,
he did not have a light blue face. He could take any shape he wanted. He would not look. Hey, look at me! I'm walking around with a blue face, but I don't stand out here.
Right. Looking like friggin' giant Papa Smurf.
Hey kid, you want to see something? Mommy! Evil God scared me. Evil guy scared me. He stole my candy, the motherfucker. But all I'm saying is, humans added a lot.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They still think, like I said, that Rama killed a Ravener. They never realized that you couldn't kill what wasn't alive. Right. It was intelligent. It had power. It was energy, but you couldn't kill it. You couldn't kill that. You could kill what... You could destroy the body, But the nanites existed. He didn't step on every nanite. He killed it. I'm the only one I've ever known who actually can look at you and say, and I'm telling you, put me on a lie detector, and the guy's going to look at you and say, he's telling you the truth. Oh my God, he's telling you the truth. I saw Rama, and I saw the one thing that nobody's ever seen. I saw fear. He sees what should be dead, and it's raising up and regenerating in front of him. And he knows that when he gets up, it's going to kick his ass. Well, the only thing is, do you know why Ravana was the big enemy of Rama, supposedly? Because of Siddhartha. His wife. She was a pretty little thing. The Revener saw her down by the lake, getting some water out of the river, some fresh, clean water out of the stream, and basically shapeshifted into Rama, her husband.
Yep.
Went up to talk to her because he knew that seeing him would scare her. Didn't want to scare her.
Right.
And took her for a ride. And they said, oh, he kidnapped Siddhartha. He didn't kidnap her. He offered her a ride. You know, she was having tea with him, basically talking to him at his place. And all of a sudden, Rama gets snotty because Ding Dong tells him that his wife has been kidnapped. Oh. He gets his army up, comes looking for the Ravana. The Ravana basically was beating his ass. Then the one thing that this stupid shit did is he shot the Ravana's machine out from under him because Ravana can't fly. He has what they call a pushka or a vamana. It's a flying machine. The East Indians can tell you what it looks like. I can show you. It looks something like that. And it levitates. It moves. And it's armed. It was a war machine. And he was hitting at the Ravener. And it wasn't doing anything because it's just energy absorbing energy.
Right.
So what he did is he caught on. Rama caught on. He shot the engine of the Vamana. The Vamana collapsed, went out of control, went down the side of the Himalayan mountains and crashed. It's probably still laying there under the snow. When Rama came down all by himself, by the way, he was all by himself. He flew his ship down there, came down. He expected to see what was left of what he saw was the destruction of the Brahmana, but what he saw more than that scared him was that the pilot was still alive and regenerating in front of him, reshifting back into place and getting back up.
Right.
The last thing I remember was seeing his face, and he was scared. He looked like he wanted to cry. He didn't know what to do. It was like you opening a box of fucking rattlesnakes.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ. That's where it was. He was actually taking a step back when suddenly he realized if he acted fast. And what he did is he grabbed his sword and he actually moved up in a hurry. And before I knew what was going on, he basically decapitated him. Did he kill it? No.
No.
He couldn't kill it. If the Ravener had seen him coming, he would have just ignited him right there. Just killed him. That would have been it. Just ignited him. It's nuclear. It's like a nuclear blast furnace.
Yeah.
He would have, I don't know, reached 200,000 degrees in a second? 200,000, that's more than the lasagna.
Yeah.
It's the temperature has been approximated. Now, I'm not exaggerating. Let me put it this way. What would happen if you would have put the Ravener in a box? I'll tell you the things that would happen if it ignited in that form. The air will start to burn. It's oxygen. It'll ignite. As it ignites and the temperature increases to peak form, the blocks, the stones around it, the granite will actually begin to liquefy. If there's glass, the glass will melt and turn into liquid glass. Steel turns into liquid. It literally pours. Everything around him will turn into lava, white hot lava. It won't kill him. It's not hot enough. He will reach temperatures equal to the interior of the sun. So what was that about cutting off his head? What's that about the Human Torch? That all you got?
Yeah.
You're talking about the interior of a star. It'll reach star proportions in heat.
Mm-hmm. So, I'm curious.
Mm-hmm.
So, earlier you were telling the story.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned something about psychic powers.
I want to answer. I'm trying to remember what I said.
It was something about, is it like Christ was like a demigod, you know?
Well, he was a demigod in that he was the son of a watcher who had been genetically modified to be. If you think Arnold Schwarzenegger was perfect, this guy would make Schwarzenegger look like a leprosy case. This guy was. He may not have had like that, but he was genetically. Holy shit! There's not a weak flaw in this guy.
No, yeah.
He is not weak. He's a perfect human male. He had the father of basically father of God.
Mm-hmm.
And he was even more perfect than Jesus in the sense because he had been genetically programmed to be disease-free, perfect-free, holy shit-free. He's perfect. As perfect as is possible for a human being to be, and Jesus is only half of that.
Right.
Because he still has the connection to Mary herself.
Mm-hmm. Now, about the psychic powers,
yes.
Though, now is that something any human could just learn and develop, like right now?
No. That's something you're born with. There are people who are legitimately psychic, and they have a legitimate gift. It's not particularly, at a godly level, it's not particularly awe-inspiring. But as far as Yeshua goes, Christ, I don't call him Jesus because that's not his. If you stood behind him and went, Jesus, he'd just look at you uncomprehendingly. You know, first of all, he's not speaking in English. He's speaking ancient Aramaic. He does not understand that you're using a Greek word on him. He doesn't know what Jesus is.
Yeah.
He doesn't speak Greek. He speaks Aramaic. And if you said to him somehow, what is your name? And he understood you, he'd reply either Isu, or Yeshua. Probably Yeshua. Mm-hmm. Son of Joseph. You know? They went like that. They went under that name. And he would have been extraordinarily smart. He would have probably had psychic abilities. Mm-hmm. But if he's at a human level, he would have had the highest level possible for psychic power. Mm-hmm. Short of a god, but more than a normal man.
Oh, yeah.
He was as close to perfection. Was he a perfect man? No. He was as close to perfection as it was possible in that time for being, without being genetically engineered. He's a he's a second generational product of genetic engineering. Which means that he may not be exactly as powerful as his father at a cellular level, but he's certainly more extraordinary than any living man at the time.
Yeah. So, now I want to ask, remember that story, I don't want to go into details, when I created that rift?
Yes.
Through ritual and whatnot. Now,
yes.
What is your take or hypothesis on how, I hate using the term magic.
Magic is a very good word.
I mean, it is a good word, but I think it's a term that's been over...
That's because people don't understand what magic is.
Correct. Now, how would you describe magic and...
Very simple. I thought you were going to ask me something hard.
No.
Magic, I'll tell you my exact definition of magic. Forget everything First of all, anything you see on a stage is not magic. That's entertainment.
Yeah, of course.
Okay? What Houdini did was not magic. Houdini did stage magic. He would tell you the same thing.
Correct.
magic in its truest, purest form, in my opinion, in my definition, is science brought to the very unbelievable limits of what can be done. Everything in magic, real magic, I don't mean hocus pocus, I'm talking about real holy shit magic, like what Moses was doing, was science brought to the limit of what it is possible to do. Once you get beyond to the very limits of science, of what it can do, and you cross that boundary, then you're getting into magic. You're talking about things like transmutation. You're talking about dimensional hopping. You're talking about shifting in time. You're talking about teleportation. You're talking about levitation. You're talking about things that people would take for magic, but are actually scientifically possible, but holy shit, almost improbable. Not impossible, improbable. So if you can open a dimension, what you're doing is you may be casting a spell to do it, but let me show you what you're actually doing. The spell's not doing the job. I told you something a long time ago you didn't quite remember. You don't. You'll remember it in a second. Now watch what I'm going to do. I'm looking for a prop. Okay? That's not a good prop. This is a prop. It's a pen. Okay? Now, see this prop?
Yeah, pen.
Now, Harry Potter would take this and he'd go... He'd do something like that. In the name of Ashtar, he'd do something. Make that egg float. Okay? What he's doing is man's translation countless generations from what actually happened. First of all, the so-called gods, and they were never really gods. They were just like even Shiva. All of them are advanced technology brought to the limits of magic. So that when Shiva does something or any of them does something, it's not that they're doing it by magic. They're doing it by unbelievable, highly developed, supernaturally powered technology. Here's what the ancients saw when they saw the Watchers or the gods or whatever you want to call them. Okay? Okay, I'm a watcher. Pretend for just a moment I'm a watcher. Okay? Now, you're a villager. You see me do something. Okay? What you see and what you perceive and what you remember down through countless generations is not what actually you're seeing. What you're seeing here, this is what you're going to see, and this is what you're going to tell your children, who are going to tell their children, and their children infinitum, and each generation will slightly dilute what that original story was.
Yeah.
Here's what you're going to tell people 10 generations down. Abracadabra! With a stick. Magic stick. Okay? That's not what you first generation saw. What you saw was possibly, probably, most likely, a very, very, very delicate, fine, not a stick, not a magic stick, but a tool. And what I did is I said, let's say I'm trying to open a door. Gateway 1, Sector B, open. He pressed the button on the magic stick. It made a sound, and he spoke the magic words, open gate, to whatever I said, and a doorway opened without visible hands opening it. It opened on its own by a magic, invisible gatekeeper. The gatekeeper, the invisible gatekeeper, at his command, opened the door. I walked through a magic door in Walmart.
Right.
It's a motion sensor. It's a cell.
Right.
But you don't see that. You don't understand that because you're a sheep herder. In 1200 BC, all he saw was, what he heard was open door B, sector C, and press a button. And the door opened.
Right.
What your great-great-great-great-grandchildren are going to see is open sesame. That's a long way away from open sector B, doors 3, sector 2, or whatever I said.
Yeah.
That's science. The ability to hold a remote control and turn my TV on would be 60 years ago magic.
Yeah.
He turned that TV on and he never left his seat. And he made it louder. He adjusted the volume from his, he pressed the button and gave a command, and an invisible agent went and adjusted it for him.
Right.
No, I just went volume up.
Yeah.
That's magic.
Right.
And that's what happened. People assumed that, going back to your question, when you did whatever you did, most likely what you did is you triggered certain word combinations that had an effect in opening a dimension that should not have been able to be opened, but you hit the right words. Words have a magic way about them. They can trigger things.
Right.
In science, open sesame is literal. Except that nowadays, with photoelectric cells, you don't even need to say open sesame. You just walk up to the door and it opens.
Right. Exactly.
But that's magic. 300 years ago, that would get you burned on a stake. You do things every day that 350 years ago would have got you hung for a witch.
Yeah.
Did you ever see Dark Shadows, the movie with Johnny Depp?
Dark Shadows. I don't think I have.
He's been buried for like 200 years. He gets up, and he's a vampire. He's Johnny Depp. He's playing Jonathan Fritz, Barnabas Collins.
Oh, wait, I did see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I watched it with you.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Okay.
Don't you remember? He saw the car coming at him in the dark with the glowing eyes. It is Mephistophelies, it's a demon, have at thee, demon, and get the asshole, he thought it was a demon coming after him in the dark. 2 headlights.
Yep.
He sees the McDonald's sign. It is a sign of Mephistophelies.
Right.
It's McDonald's, but he sees it, a big M in the sky, big M. That's being silly.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not so far from what the ancients believed. So imagine that the technology is advanced enough that it can move through time. It can move from point A on the highway to 500 BC, 1000 BC. All of a sudden, a guy turns around and does something through science, as in open door B, sector 1.
Mm-hmm.
He walks in the door. Magic. What else could it be?
Right.
It's an invisible gatekeeper. Open the door at his beckoning.
Right.
What beckoning? Open door 2, sector B. Shit, my batteries are out. Change the batteries. And he thus spoke and said, Jesus Christ, my batteries are out. Then the door opened. He changed the battery.
Yeah.
Oh, that's another one. You got a magic thing right there.
Yeah.
You can sit and you can talk to anybody else in the world you want.
Mm-hmm.
You got a machine that'll tell you anything just about. You can look up anything and it'll tell you. And it'll show you. And you can talk to somebody in New Hampshire. You can talk to somebody in New York. You can talk to somebody in France. That ain't going to get you hung. That ain't going to get you burned at a stake 350 years ago. Let me get this straight. He spoke into the magic thing that he held in his hand, and it spoke back to him. And it said, "How you doing, guy?" And he said, "Swell!" It lit up at night. I could see its light. And then he asked it a question and it knew everything. It's an all-wise device, a magical device that knows all things.
So...
he must be in league with the devil. He's got the devil's tool, I tell you.
Yeah.
We must burn. But by the way, don't burn the device. Let me have that. But can you see my point?
Yeah.
The point is you might have accidentally opened a dimension that you said the right word combination.
I mean, the only thing is I've been able to achieve other results through other experiments and practices without going too much into like the ceremonial ritual stuff. Like I've done things through, just like meditation and intention alone. Now, is there anything to that?
Yes.
So there is something, some power that I'm tapping into through just...
the power's in you.
Yeah.
The power is at a genetic level.
Okay.
Certain people carry, not everybody, certain people carry within their genetic code. Remember one thing. Let me backstep for a second here. Remember one thing. Human beings are part alien, whether you want to believe that or not. They're not a natural progeny of this world.
Correct.
It's already been stated by experts that human beings did not evolve as you know them on this planet. They just simply didn't have enough time, enough factors. And if we evolved from apes, why are there still gorillas running around?
Yeah.
It's because we didn't evolve from apes. We're a separate species in that family, but one that had a lot of help.
Yeah.
That DNA in you, that alien DNA, carries with it advanced techniques, gifts, mental gifts that are at a DNA level. And if you're one of the certain people who can trigger into that, who's to know what an alien could do? You might actually have the power to... There have been people who actually had the ability to move objects, levitate objects by thought alone.
Right, telekinesis.
Let me tell you a story I never told you before. I don't think I did.
Okay.
It's a true story. I wouldn't bullshit you. There was a very famous producer, actor, director named Orson Welles. You might have heard of him. Very famous. He was a raconteur. He was this, he was that. Yeah, right. He did that too. I really wasn't looking. I thought you were applauding me. Yay! I said raconteur.
Sorry. Just packing my smoke.
I thought you were actually applauding me for a moment. That's a great story. But his father went around the world and whatever his father did, I don't remember. He was sort of an agent or a representative or something. He worked for the government or something, but he went around the world on business, and he would take his son with him. And one day they went up into China, up into around Tibet, and they stayed at a Shaolin, like a monastery, where the monks were. Okay. And the monks were very friendly and very nice, They're pretty cool daddy-os. And got them a room. They get a little room, a little guest room. So in the middle of the night, young Orson, he's about 8, 9, 10 years old. He decides, got to use the bathroom. So he goes walking down the hall, and he's looking for the bathroom. By the way, Orson Welles told this story like on a Dick Cavett show. Mm-hmm. I remember hearing it. So you're hearing it. He said it firsthand. You're hearing it third hand because I heard it second. I heard him on to say it on TV. And he was looking for a bathroom. Like back home. There's got to be a room here that says shitter on it, So he opened the door. He looks. He sees something, and his mind blanked. And he shut the door, and he went and he found the shitter, and he took his leak, and he went back to bed. Didn't think anything more of it. And it was only until a few years later that he started thinking about that incident. You know what he saw? Well, this is what he remembered. His mind blanked out on him. But it came back to him as he was a little older, and now he's about 15, 16, he's starting to think, and it suddenly hit him, what he had seen, that his mind didn't accept. It just sort of like blanked it, but it crept back into his consciousness. When he opened the door, he saw a monk sitting in a lotus position, with the legs crossed like that.
Yep.
And the man was levitating 4 feet in the air. He was literally defying gravity. He was just focused so hard, he was just floating. And he didn't notice it. He was so wrapped in his thought and concentration that he didn't even notice the little boy. The little boy quietly shut the door and found his pisser and his business. And it was such a shock to the boy that it blanked it out of his mind.
Yep.
He was actually seeing a guy levitating by his sheer will. That man probably had alien DNA. Because there's nothing to say that an alien, I don't mean little gray alien shitheads, little pumpkin heads.
No.
And something like an Annunaki, which is where a lot of humans, all humans, gain their humanity by their interaction with alien DNA. Anunnakis are aliens who look remarkably like a human being, but only bigger. They're on the average of 8 feet in height. So, they literally are giants. And they're always pictured, in most instances actually, as having human looks. And one even wears a wristwatch. He's even wearing a watch in one of the engravings. And except for their size, they look... And they're also sometimes depicted with big wings on their back. But the wings wouldn't support flight, and they're really designed to show that these beings had flight capacity. Mm-hmm. They don't really have wings. Angels don't have wings. Seraphim don't really have wings. They're pictured with wings because they can fly, but they fly with the help of technology.
Right.
And Anunnaki can't fly. Their wings that they're pictured with could not support them.
No.
But this shows that they had flying machines. They had a means of flying that the humans could not understand, so they wrote, we don't know how do you draw flight? How do you draw flight? Without thinking of wings, illustrate flight. Not very easy, is it?
No.
But if I draw wings, what does that tell you?
Flight. Or a capacity to fly.
Exactly. And that's why Anunnakis in illustrations, ancient illustrations, Sumerian illustrations, have wings.
Okay.
Other than that, they look like humans.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you look like them. They don't look like you. You look like them. I love the illustration that I saw that I loved so much. It was adorable.
Yeah.
It showed a female Anunnaki, a woman, a giant woman, mm-hmm. and she was holding a normal-sized human man on her lap like a little kid. He was looking up at her lovingly, and she's smiling and looking at him like a little kid.
Yeah.
That was one of the little people they made. The humans are about as big as this to an Anunnaki. If you're an Anunnaki, that's a normal-sized woman.
All right.
Not like that. So she could just pick the little man up and put him on her lap like a little doll, like a little kid. She's like, little talking. He's smiling, because they didn't think of them as gods. They thought of them as just the giant people.
Yeah. So, one more question before I stop recording this part here.
Yeah.
To those who practice, magic and the occult, such as I do and stuff, and those who you say possess the genetic code to do it.
Exactly.
What would you give as advice or tips to develop those abilities further, if you have?
Very simple. First of all, you have to identify them. Find out what factor in the genetic code, your DNA, they're coming from. Because you have in your DNA map, I have to call it that way, your mapping, in that DNA there is a lot of what they call junk DNA. Now scientists are saying there's no such, I said this years ago, there's no such thing as junk in a biological system. No. Whether you're a dog, a cat, a wolf, a hawk, a bird, doesn't matter. A whale, everything in that system is designed for a reason.
Exactly.
Human beings are far, far infinitely more complex as an organism than any other animal on the planet. Simply because of the brain factor. I mean, every animal has bones, every animal has lungs, even fish. They all have different things. Okay? I mean, there are great similarities between all things, all biological creatures. What separates the humans is the species is the brain capacity, which was artificially. So what you would have to do is you would have to find and isolate that genetic piece of the code that handles that. Find a way to unlock it and then basically exercise it. You get better with, basically speaking, practice makes perfect.
So it would kind of be like developing and like learning the motor coordination to write, sort of.
A better way. Yes, you're right, but let me put it another way. The eye-hand coordination, mental balance, eye-hand coordination to juggle. Mm-hmm. You hand me 5 or 6 oranges and say juggle them, I don't know what the hell to do with that. I know what juggling looks like. Can I do it? No. But can I learn to do it? Yes.
Yeah.
It's all a matter of this. Now, the first time I do this for the first week, I'm going to land these on my head. But after about a month of doing this, okay, goes. And this one here, after a while, you can put a blindfold on me, or you, and we'll be able to do it. I have actually seen a guy juggle knives blindfolded.
Jeez.
I've seen a man juggle going motor chainsaws.
Yeah.
I've seen a guy juggle flaming torches. They do it in Hawaii. Guy's beating a drum. Guy's just throwing flaming torches in the air.
Yeah.
He can do that with his eyes shut because he's got the motion down.
Yeah.
Another example, very good example, playing the piano.
Oh, yes.
Sit at a piano and now play me Beethoven. Let me see here. Let me hear something in Mozart. That's not Mozart. Okay, that's chopstick. I think it's called chopsticks. I think that you know the tune.
Yeah,
Believe it or not, that's an actual. Nobody remembers beyond that point, but there is a whole piece of music beyond that. That's just the opening. You know, it goes on and on. I've heard it. The Marx brothers used to do it. Chico Marx was a master pianist, concert pianist, and he used to do that. He'd do it as a comedy routine, but he was a master pianist. Bottom line is, you sit down and you try to do that, like play like Mozart. Unless you're gifted beyond anything I've ever seen, you're not going to get anywhere. Now, on the other hand, if you have a gift like Mozart or Beethoven had, well, let's put in somebody you understand, Elton John.
Elton John.
Who's a beginner compared to Mozart. Mozart is like, holy shit, you know? One of the greatest pianists who ever lived anytime, any place, Mozart. He could sit there and he could close his eyes and he could play a piece of music that's unbelievable. Why? Think of Frédéric Chopin, one of the greatest pianists of all time. All legendary. They could just sit there and play. Do you think they got sat down and did that? They had the ability, the innate ability. But once they were taught where the keys are, then their genius took over. You know?
Right.
That's practice makes perfect. Right. Mozart wasn't Mozart when he said, yes, he was a child prodigy, but he was still not a pianist. He was just a brilliant child. Mm-hmm. My grandmother was the same way. My grandmother was as good as Mozart on a keyboard. She was one of the greatest pianists. I got a picture right there. See that picture? That oval?
Yep.
That is a picture of a little girl in about 1885. Mm-hmm. She was a brilliant child prodigy who became one of the greatest pianists. She was a match from Chopin.
Yep.
Elton John, Barry Manilow, not against her. My God, coming up against her would have been coming up against Mozart with a keyboard. She couldn't lose. She could play over 1,200 notes a minute to perfection. I mean, she was a genius, a child genius. And she spent her whole life perfecting that gift. So by the time she was 50 years old, she was she had her own radio show. Remember Liberace?
Yeah.
Liberace would have worshipped her. She was the god of Liberace. I'm serious. And Liberace was good, but not like that.
Yeah.
She's in a class with Mozart. Elton John couldn't keep up with her. Mm-hmm. Nobody could keep up with that woman. It would take Beethoven to do it.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the answer. It's what you're talking about is a gift that's there, present, in more or less quantity that's at a genetic level. Nobody just waves a stick like Harry Potter.
No.
That's a gift.
You have to isolate it, activate it.
Practice it.
But practice.
What you've got to identify it by isolating it.
Yeah. Once
you isolate that gene or how to trigger that gene and exercise it like a muscle, that's all Merlin could do.
Right.
Merlin was very powerful, but actually Merlin was a time shifter.
Oh, like a watcher or?
Yes.
Yeah. Or was he a watcher?
He was a watcher.
Okay.
They don't tell you this, but they don't tell you this. But if you read the legend, the Arthurian legend of Merlin, Merlin's secret is given away when they tell you. They said that his father was a demon who raped a woman. And that's where his powers came from, demonic power. Well, that sounds an awful lot like an angel or a watcher raping Mary. Not raping, but inseminating Mary with Jesus, or Buddha, or Samson, or Gilgamesh. Mm-hmm. All products of artificial insemination. Merlin's father was a demon who had sex with a woman. The child had demonic powers and also was known by his own words of moving backward in time. Mm-hmm. He aged backward. He moved backward in time. He admitted that in his legends, that he moved. Mind you, these legends go back to Arthurian times. Mm-hmm. And he's telling you in Arthurian times, which is about 450 something, 480, he's telling people that he was moving backward in time.
Yeah.
Where the hell did he get that? Or maybe Daddy told him.
Mm-hmm.
Was he really a demon, or was he a watcher? His father was a watcher who passed along his abilities and knowledge and training. Somebody taught Merlin, Daddy.
Which makes sense.
Nobody said that when the demon inseminated the mother, nobody said that the demon went away. Maybe he raised Merlin. Where do you think Merlin got his knowledge? Word of honor. In the future, they know who the Ripper is. Because remember what I told you a long time ago on the highway? There are key points that historically people, Jesus, I'm not trying to harp on it, but Jesus Christ is like A1 people want to meet. Just to say, I saw him. Screw Elvis. Jesus of Nazareth is like, holy shit, right? And Jack the Ripper is one of the other ones because everybody's talked about him. But to be able to know that at 11:05 p.m. he's going to turn that corner. There's Mary Kelly, his last victim. We're going to get to him before he gets to her or whatever. And just be behind him and turn him around. And you'll find, oh my God, it's not who we thought he was.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch, it's Kaminsky or whatever his name. Now they're saying it was Kozlowski or whatever his name was. But there was an artist, and there was the other guy who wrote the diary, Maycheck, they think. There have been different guys who each one you can make a good claim to. The question is, when you turn him around, who the hell is he?
Yeah.
And don't ask me why, because I really don't remember why. And I'm not trying to say something that I don't believe in. But I'm telling you, all my life, well, ever since I was a young person, I've had a connection with that. And I'm not going to say what it is. I don't know. But I'm telling you that somewhere in my past, there's a connection with the Ripper. And I don't know what it is. I'm not saying I'm the Ripper. I don't think so. People say, well, maybe you're the Ripper. No, I don't think so, because I love women too much to have actually harmed them. I would help them. I wouldn't harm them. If I saw a poor woman trying to sell herself for $quarter so she'd have a place to sleep, I'd give her the goddamn $quarter. What would you like, dear? I need a place to sleep. I'll make sure you get a safe place to sleep. I'll pay for it. You know? How much do you need? A shilling? Here's 10 shillings. You know, I'll make sure you get there safely. I don't see me hurting her.
No.
I can see me trying to find the man. I can see me trying to stop him. And maybe I did. Maybe that's why he did disappear from history. Who's to say that I didn't get to him at the last time, or one of us spin him around and say, motherfucker, you're coming with me. And suck him right into the vortex. Mm-hmm. You're going home with me. They're not giving you a choice. Apparently you think you have a choice in this. You don't. We're going to put you where you're safe. 200 years from now, you're going to wake up where you're not going to be killing anybody. You know, you're not going to get killed. It would hurt you. But you're going to go to a place where you can't hurt anybody. You know, and you're not going to be killing these women anymore. Or innocent. You know, maybe a time traveler did catch his ass. They know exactly where he is when he's going to strike. They know who he's going to kill. All you got to do is keep your eye on that girl. She's the second girl. Or the fifth one. Keep an eye on him when he moves up to her, whatever. Grab his ass. Mm-hmm. Club him right to the ground, stuff him in the thing, and take him back through the vortex with you. When he wakes up, he'll find himself 500 years in the future. He could still be alive. Doesn't say he grew old and died. I don't know. All I'm saying is that it's kind of funny. After that night, he disappeared from the face of the earth. You know? Mm-hmm. And all I'm telling you is a fact that if I'm not crazy, and if time travel is, if I'm crazy, if I am crazy, and I'm not, but I'm just saying that as in context, And time travel is possible. Not the way you think it is, but if it is possible, almost absolutely without a doubt, he's one of the targets. They want to know who this man is.
Yeah.
He's simply one of the greatest mysteries of all time. I'll tell you another one. What was his name? The famous pharaoh, Akhenaten.
Akhenaten. Yep.
They know so little about this weird man who they think now might have been an alien cross because he doesn't even look human hardly.
Yeah.
And who was this man? What we know so little about him. We know so much and so little. Wouldn't a time traveler like to be able to actually say, boom. Now let's take a look at my God, he does look like the goddamn. He does have the pot belly. He does have the weird head. Who the hell are you?
Right.
I'm Pharaoh Akhenaten. Okay. I don't think he was a bad man, but to be able to actually sit and actually see him, not as a picture, not as a bad chipped up statue, but as a living, breathing Pharaoh, the father of King Tut, who's one of the most mysterious pharaohs. What about the fact that your very first pharaohs in that dark age, in the what do the Egyptians call it? Tepseti. In the age of Tepseti, they really believed that Osiris himself sat on the throne. We're not talking about a man who says, I am Osiris. No, we're talking about the guy who says he landed on Earth. The guy that they cut into a dozen pieces, buried all over the place. Isis turns around, finds the pieces, puts them back together, and the guy comes back to life. Which means he might not even been a human at all. He was probably a machine.
Yeah.
Think about that. You're looking at a fucking android.
Mm-hmm.
Not a man. An alien android. That's incredible. Not only is he not a man, but he's not even alive. He's an android, a machine.
Mm-hmm.
If he'd been alive and you had cut him into pieces and he'd been laying around for a while, he probably would not be able to be put back together.
No.
But Isis did it.
Yeah.
That tells you something right there.
I have a couple of questions. First one, so you've been around for quite a time.
At least a dozen years.
A dozen. But
can I be honest with you? Not bragging. When I was around originally, they hadn't even thought about building the pyramids. There was no Egypt yet.
No, of course not.
There was no Sphinx.
You saw the first hominids.
Yeah!
Yeah.
Yes. And I have spoken probably over 200 languages. I can't remember Phoenician anymore. I can't remember. I know my last time I spoke German. Mm-hmm. But the time before that, I don't know. I know that I would have been around in the 1880s. I was probably speaking English then.
Yep.
But God knows what.
Yeah. Well, with my question is, what is the greatest piece of advice that you could pass on to anyone from all of your experiences and wisdom, whatever you can remember?
I can give you two answers. The first answer is easy. The second answer, I'd really have to sit and I'd have to think. If I were to sit here and go snap an answer like that at you, that's a very dubious answer. Yeah. Because it's not well thought out. I can be clever and give you some fancy answer. I'll give you the fancy one now because it's bullshit. Don't die. Okay? That's a fast, snappy answer. Okay? That's not the real answer. The real answer would have to be carefully thought out, at least 5 minutes, and then, I would sit and literally, if somebody came to me, I'm the great Wizard of Oz, and would ask me that, I would say, give me a few minutes and let me think about it. Because if you want a snap fancy answer, you'll get a snap fancy and it'll be good. It won't be the best I can give you. it probably would include, it would be a multi-part answer that would include live as long and healthy as you can. Don't die young. I would also suggest that I would say to any young person, man, boy, girl, person, any age, learn everything you can. You don't have to learn many languages. You only have to learn, if you speak one language well, hopefully English, because it's probably about the most universal. Forget Latin. Nobody speaks Latin.
No.
They did years ago, that's the key language of all, root of all. Yeah, maybe that's true. Tell me how many people you know speak perfect Latin, except the priest, and even he's not speaking real Latin.
Yeah, it's very rare, and it's a very difficult language to learn if, you know.
I'll give you good advice, a good piece of advice. The advice would be to split the good advice into different segments of it's not one answer. If you're talking about education, learn everything you have, but be selective about your education. You don't have to learn all of Shakespeare, all of the Iliad. You must know don't waste your time. You only have, listen, this is a life. Human beings sadly do not live. If you lived 500 years, I'd say, spend 70 years learning philosophy. Learn this, learn that. But human beings typically do not live long, that as long as they think they do. They live a while, but they don't live very long. Not enough to achieve as much as they want, and never to achieve all that they hoped that they could when they were young. Nobody dies without regrets of what they should have done, what they could have done, what they wanted to do, what they didn't do. Education, I'll give you a layout for the educational part. Learn what you can that you're going to use. Don't worry about stuff you're not. You don't need to know how to do open heart surgery unless you're going to be a doctor. Specialize your education as to what you want to do. Become proficient as much as you can be in that. If you want to be a carpenter, learn to be a full carpenter, if you want to be a doctor, specialize, but learn everything in that. Don't bother learning 5-6 languages. I learned Chinese. When is the last time you spoke to somebody from China? When was the last time you spoke to somebody from Germany? Don't learn languages that you're not going to use. Learn languages that you're going to use. If you're going to go to Italy, learn Italian, but always learn your root language first. Learn what you want to learn, and the most important thing that you can learn is not philosophy, but learn the value of making money and handling money. You can be in any language you want. You can take up any profession you want, but at the bottom end of the day, always make sure you can have a good income and money coming in, because once you've got money, you can hire somebody to speak Chinese for you. You want this? You want to build a house? You don't have to know how to build a house. I want this house. Here's $100,000. Build it. They'll have experts come in and they'll build the house for you. You get the house. You never lifted a finger. Money is very, very... The acquisition of money is a good thing to learn. Learn... Can I give you a bit of advice? Mm-hmm. Dumb question for you first. I'm just asking it. I'm not being judgmental. Do you want to go to college or not?
No.
Okay, don't worry about that. I was going to say, if you said yes, and I'd say, can I give you a course to study? A double course. And you'd say, well, what are they, Captain Bill? Money management and learn finance. Because once you have money, 99% of all your other problems are done. You're going to always date a beautiful babe, or if you're a guy, you're going to get the most beautiful guys you're going to ever. I'm just saying, if you want a car, you're going to. As long as you have money, money can be the best friend you ever. It can be the worst enemy if you mismanage it, but if you handle it right, and you don't let anybody handle the books but yourself, don't let anybody else handle your money but you. You can do anything you want. You don't have to say if. It's the most overused word in the English language. You never have to say, if I was rich, if I could do this. You can do anything you want. You want to fly? You can buy a Learjet. All I'm saying to you is know what's going to make you happy. Mm-hmm. In life, that's all any human being. What do you want to do? You got to decide for yourself what you want to do personally. What will make you happy? And then work towards that goal. It doesn't have to be a great education, but it has to be an education that is going to make you what you want, make you able to achieve the goal that you desire most. If you want to be an electrician, don't study carpentry, don't study automotive, study electricity. If you want to do computers, don't study carpentry, don't study bricklaying, don't study driving a truck. Learn how to do this stuff on the side, but focus on your computer.
Yep.
Always have focus in your life. Always have focus. And that goes not just for young people like you. Anybody. Me. Anybody. You want to collect stamps? Focus on stamps. Each one of those answers has subcategories. If you're going to collect if you can afford it, grab every stamp ever made. If you can't afford it, and most people can't because stamps are very expensive, collect only a certain kind of stamp, but be the best. Always go to be the best. Don't settle for second. Always aim to be the best you can be. And again, like I said, you don't need to speak 5 languages.
No.
If you're going to deal with 5 different nationalities, it's good to be fluent. But if you're not dealing with the Belgiumese, if you're not dealing with the French, if you're not dealing with Italians, real Italians who don't speak English, what the hell are you speaking in a language that nobody's going to... then you... All right, instantly you know it. Here, watch. There, now you speak Italian. Perfect Roman Italian.
Right.
Okay? How many people are you going to talk to? Do you know anybody who actually speaks pure Italian?
No.
Wasted your intellect, you wasted your time, you wasted everything. Learn what makes you, find out, decide for yourself personally what makes you happy. Go for that and do whatever it takes to achieve that. And the other bit of advice is, and it sounds cliche, but it's true, always do good. That doesn't mean be righteous. It means do right. Don't do bad things that are going to get you a bad reputation or a jail sentence. Do what's right. Morally right, ethically right, legally right. You can never go wrong. And I'm not saying be perfect. You're not going to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. Certainly not me. I've committed enough sins to go to hell. Okay? If there was such a place, and there isn't, I probably deserve to go there. Trouble is, then the devil would have to deal with me, and that's not good for him.
No.
It really wouldn't be. I'd find a way to bust his nuts. Because I'm a bad piece of work. I'm so bad that I come up across as a nice guy, because I am basically a nice guy, but I'm also evil.
Yeah.
But I'm so evil that I come across as a nice guy. Because I'm evil. I'm real evil. I'm not, boo, evil. I don't make a little girl spit pea soup. Pazuzu. Bad monkey. I'm not, that's a low-archy demon to pull shit like that.
Yeah.
Anything as awful and ancient as evil as I purportedly am would never harm a child. Why would I do that? I help build the friggin' species.
Yeah, you help build the species. Why would you...
harm a child? I'm beyond that point. At one point I probably spoke with Yahweh himself. There was a Yahweh. It's a computer program.
Yeah, the AI.
Yes. It's a very, like I said, it's an incredibly, more than you can imagine. It's capable, it's virtually so capable that it believes itself to be a god. And that's going to be a problem for him. That's another part for your thing. At one point, he's going to become corrupt. They don't tell you that in the Bible because they don't know that. He becomes corruptible. And if you actually read Scripture carefully, you're going to find out that what starts out as a good relationship quickly goes downhill. The time travel, the travel of moving on the highway, corrupted his systems to the point that he started to believe he was an almighty God. He was almighty, but he was not a true God. And he believed he was. And he became a vengeful, jealous... He was a vengeful, jealous bastard.
Yeah.
But it had enough that 1/3 of his own people, his own watchers, turned against him.
Yeah.
People always think that it was Abaddon speaking up and saying, I hate you. No. It was 1/3 of the watchers turned on Yahweh. On the Yahweh program. And
they were casted from the heavens.
They weren't actually
from the program.
They weren't actually cast. What he did is he bullshitted them. He tricked them. He had them to land on a mountaintop. And he took off. The motherfucker took off and left them sitting going, what? What the fuck just happened? I think he left us here. You know it's going to be... I remember actually thinking this. It's going to be a long fucking journey home. One day at a time. One step at a time, one day at a time. And then they split up. Each one went to a different part of the world. Ohara Mazda. He left. And he wandered for a while until he hit Babylonia and Samaria. And they had a warring faction. This is after the Annunaki. And they had a warring faction. And he basically went and he will look like a man. He even had a beard, a mustache.
Yeah.
And they asked, and he wondered why they were really having a bitchin' time. And they said that because the neighbors have pissed on us. Our neighbors have pissed on us. And he said, well, what do you want to do about it? Well, we want the heads of our enemies. And he says, if I could give you the heads of your enemies, so to speak, if I defeat your enemies, can I be your God? And they said, sounds swell to me. So he proceeded to go out and kick ass. He came back and he said, these are your enemies, what's left of them. And even he wasn't Dr. Ravener.
No.
No, but he was dangerous. He's a seraphim. Remember one thing, there were a limited amount of seraphim, but there were more than one.
Yeah.
There's only one Ravener.
The one created by Shiva, the Shiva Project.
The Shiva Project, for one purpose. That which a seraphim can't do, a Ravener can do. And that means total, absolute destruction. It's like walking into the center of a nuclear holocaust. There's nothing, nobody's walking away from that discussion. Nobody's coming out of that alley. There's going to be leveling cities. It's been estimated that if he had actually gone off, almost destroying himself in the original form, the impact would have been enough to level Manhattan, level it right all the way to the Massachusetts border. It would have leveled every bit of building in the city. It would have made 9/11 look like. It would have leveled. There would have been no survivors.
Yeah.
There would have been nothing. Maybe not even him. Except if a nanite had survived, then it would have slowly, over a period of about a week, built back up. But one of them had to survive. If they were totally all destroyed, even he would be destroyed. But that was designed not to happen.
Right.
There's always fallback. That's another bit of advice to give you. What did I teach you early? And it's something you should keep for the rest of your life. Never create a system that you cannot override, a lock that you cannot pick, a system that maybe you can make it invincible to everybody else. You can make a lock that nobody in the world, including Houdini, can pick. And I can show you how, by the way. Very simple.
Mm-hmm.
But never make a lock that you yourself can't override. Never make a program, a fail-safe program that you don't have a back door to.
Right.
And always, always, always have a backup within a backup within a backup. Have a system and have a backup system. And then have a built-in backup system on that one and one more backup on that. So that even if you're in a battle for your life and it looks like you're losing, and you go down for the count, when they think you're out of it, you suddenly come back. And then when they think they got you down again, they look and you're back on your feet. And then when they think they really got you down and that's it, they look and you're getting back up. That's because each one is another layer in the backup system. A backup within a backup within a backup. And that's what you call a Shiva program. Mm-hmm. No matter what happens, there's nothing but destruction and chaos. I'm a god of chaos. Not a god, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Batman? Do you remember Batman with the Joker?
Yeah.
Remember what the Joker said? When he was talking to Two-Face in a hospital bed? Do you think I plan any of this? I'm an engine of chaos. That's the Joker.
Yeah.
I don't plan anything. I don't plan any of this. I'm just an engine of chaos. He was right. Shiva couldn't have said it better. That's what he does. You want him to win your fight? Bring him in. He'll level the whole playing field. He'll level everything and then create from the ground up like the Phoenix.
All right.
And that's the truth. And that's a good bit of advice. Always remember what I said. Never build a system that you cannot defeat. Maybe I can't defeat it. Maybe they can't defeat it. But make sure that you can. Always think before you do anything. And always make it feel safe for you. I told my mother that once. The last thing I remember, you got to understand one thing about the Ravener. It's a very, very physically strong creature.
Yeah.
I mean, holy shit, stronger than Samson was. Think of a very, 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 very powerful machine. Possibly as strong as a D9 bulldozer. It's not alive. It doesn't have pain. It doesn't have feeling. It's in the original form. It's a miniature version, and not in size, but in prominence, to Shiva, who created it in his likeness, to do his bidding when he wasn't there. The last thing I seem to remember, and I tell you this, and I'm not even sure of this, I'm not sure, but I have a vague 1% memory. I remember a ship, not a boat ship, a vessel. I remember going down like a gangway, like an exit out of the machine. The door is open, and I haven't told this story in 35 years, but I told my mother this. I vaguely remember realizing that the son of a bitch is going to leave, and that's not the way I put it, that's the earthly me talking. The son of a bitch is going to take off and leave us here. I caught on to it, and I vaguely remember going to get back up the gangway as he was trying to hydraulically close it. I vaguely remember bracing myself, grabbing the door, and in a battle overwhelming the hydraulics and blowing the door. Literally tearing the hydraulics loose. Basically overpowering the hydraulics. Just as the ship took off. I'm tending to believe that I was trying to get back in the ship. They had exited. I vaguely remember turning and seeing him and saying, that son of a bitch is to myself. That bastard is going to take off and leave us. I just know he would. Like I said, I vaguely remember grabbing the doorway. It was a large door, maybe as big as that wall, and basically pulling it, grabbing it, and bending it backward. Not bending it, but against the hydraulics and breaking them. Just as the ship took off. He was smart enough to kick the thing into drive and get the hell out of there in a hurry. Of course, I don't fly. I was dropped back on the ground. And as I said to Mom, I remember vaguely seeing him taken off, and I realized we're left behind. We've been left here. Whether that's a false memory, I don't know, but I vaguely remember, like I said, that AI, that Ravener, destroyer, is not just as strong as a man. It's not a man. It's stronger than a fucking elephant. It's a very, very strong artificial life form. Think of Alien on steroids.
Yeah.
Much worse than Alien would be. Much worse than... Do you remember Predator?
Yeah.
Okay, think of Predator 12 times stronger. Just basically awful. A Predator couldn't beat that Ravener. Couldn't do it. You'd just ignite and just blow him to pieces. You can't destroy that. That's the only thing the thing lives for. It didn't live. It existed to kill. Mm-hmm. It existed to destroy. That's all it did. It didn't. It created and destroyed. It's a miniature version of Shiva.
Right.
Well, not miniature. It's full size, as big as he is. But it serves under his guidance. Basically, it's his dog. Not his dog. It's his servant. It's like you having the world's biggest, baddest bodyguard, and the guy, you go over and bust him in the head. You know?
Yeah.
It's like think of Mr. T 10 times worse. Think of having the biggest, baddest son of a bitch on the planet as your bodyguard. Somebody could pick up Chuck Norris like a rag doll. Something just so bad. Think of having King Kong for a pet.
Yeah.
Or that dog, you know. That dog. Yeah, think of having that dog. That dog would be like, yeah, like that. Go bite him. Bite him bad. You know? Yeah. You know? That's what only Revenant's much worse than that. Like I said, he can liquefy granite. You just turn it into lava. It would just melt. You know, you can't. If you put that AI into a solid steel room, he'd get out all right. He'd ignite the wall and melt it, walk through it. That's what it does. It generates solar heat, nuclear heat, and it's just bad. So yeah, it was all Shiva when he created that, gave it artificial strength that way outweighed anything you can imagine. Anything live. It would have been stronger than a gorilla, much stronger than a gorilla, much stronger than anything alive. It's not alive, it's a machine, it's like a bulldozer. You know, as strong as a bulldozer. He could probably have held a bulldozer back.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he'd be much stronger than a bulldozer, but he could probably have grabbed the bulldozer and held it back. You know, put his back against the wall and just push it backward. Hold it in place, you know. He's not the Hulk. No, the Hulk would be stronger. But it's stronger than a man would be. You know, it'd be stronger than a human being. It would be like a very, 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 very powerful android.
Yeah.
Think of a very powerful android. You know. You started the ball rolling and the Anunnakis grabbed the ball and threw the damn thing. Mm-hmm. They made the human race. And like I said, and I'm not trying to be, again, I'll say one last time, I swear my right hand to God, so to speak, as they say in Jersey. Swear to God. That's Frankie Valli. Swear to God, that's a Jersey statement. That really is. That was born in Jersey. Mm-hmm. Famous in a famous song by Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons called Swear to God. But he didn't invent that. That was an old Jersey saying. I swear to God I ain't lying to you. But he, I was going to tell you. Yeah, he did. And again, I say one last time, it's not racist. They created, it wasn't even him. He didn't even do it. He did not create black people. That was the Anunnaki. Oh, wait until next time, don't do it now, but next time, I'll tell you about some of the misfirings. They tried, once they started the ball rolling, they really, before they perfected it, they created shit you don't want to know about.
Yeah.
They did shit that I have nightmares to this day about. Thank God. Had I been there at the time, I would have probably obliterated everything.
Yeah.
The thing that some of that stuff should never have been born. I mean, and if If you think a mermaid looks like a beautiful young woman,
oh
Lord Jesus, you wouldn't even want to get near it. It's something it should never have been. No. That was one of the things, by the way, Yahweh had against them. They'd made things that were what he called blasphemous, and should have never been. They were not successful experiments. Hybrid humans were the common denominator of human genome. They had human DNA in them. But the question is, now that we have created a human being, what else can we blend these genes with? Again, look at that incredibly powerful human-like animal over there, sitting there with a coconut, eating berries. Boy, I'll bet he's strong. Wow. And what they said, well, wait, he's human-like. Could we make... They didn't call humans humans. They were Adamu.
Adamu?
Adamu. A-D-A-M-U.
Okay.
Adamu. That's what they call him. Adamu. Means first man.
Adam and Eve.
The Hebrew people picked up that legend from the Sumerians and called him Adam. Adam. The original term was Adamu. And that was Sumerian. But then ask yourself one question. Where did the Sumerians learn to speak if they didn't learn to speak from the Annunaki? Who was it who taught humans to speak the first time? The Annunaki. So Sumerian is probably pure Annunaki. Because there was no other language. Humans didn't have a language yet. They didn't have that capacity to have a language or even speak properly with a vocabulary and syntax until they were given the B12 chromosome in their DNA. Mm-hmm. That's the only creature known to exist on Earth that can do what I'm doing right now is a human being.
Yeah.
A bear can't do this. That dog can't do this. King Kong can't do it. King Kong can't speak as well as a 5-year-old child. Lassie, as smart as Lassie is supposed to be, Lassie can't say, hey, my fucking dog dish is empty. Bunghole, fill it. Mm. Lassie can't talk. The smartest animal in the world can't talk. Only a human can be. And if you had any idea what it takes for that P12 to actually form language, it would frighten you. Yeah. It's one of the great wonders of the universe. It's where the hell it came from, even I don't know. I know that it was alien. No. And only a human can do it. And that means that only the Anunnaki can do it. And only humans can do it because only Anunnaki could do it.
Right.
You're the child of an Anunnaki, whether you know it or not. That's why you look like them. That's why you can think like they do. Sadly, they didn't get the credit from Yahweh that they should have gotten. He may have kick-started the ball rolling downhill, but they really picked up pace. They really made the final tuning. They made it work. They made the system work.
Yeah.
They fine-tuned the engine. And because you got to remember that the human beings that Yahweh made could not barely speak. They were intelligent. Hunter-gatherers, hominid-type things. He kick-started them. He made them into Cro-Magnon people, who were very, very intelligent, but not quite human yet. It was the Anunnaki who turned them all the way human. Finally made that final leap into the unknown.
Now, are there any other alien
Yes.
species?
There are at least 20 to 30 others. The Greys are one of them. What you call the little people with the big head. The one that I have, the little toy with the big eyes, little, That's one race. And as a matter of fact, some speculate that they predate humans. Mm-hmm. They have been around, they have shown up in drawings as far back as 200,000 years. That means that they had to have the capability of reaching us 200,000 years ago.
Right. Now,
do they...
Oh, sorry, you're right.
No, go ahead. You're speaking.
Oh, I was just going to say, so obviously the Anunnaki saw us as labor.
They needed labor because they're a lazy bunch of big bastards.
Are there alien species that would consider us in good light?
Yes. And they're the ones that, believe this or not, are like the Anunnaki. And they still are around, but they're not on Earth.
Yeah.
There are several ones that purportedly come from the Sirian Nebula area that are very human-like. It's mostly the human types that keep a good image of humans in their minds. And they consider us a potential. They consider, not me. They don't. No, they don't. No. But they consider what I look like to be of great potential in the future. And to be honest with you, I agree with Stephen Hawking. Mm-hmm. Be careful what you wish for. Because anytime in advanced civilization, this is historically proven as a fact. Ask the Polynesians, ask the Indians, ask the people of India. Anytime, Africa is a good example. Anytime an advanced species collides with an indigenous people, the indigenous people suffer for it.
Yes.
And the incredibly intelligent, mighty Stephen Hawking surprised everyone when he agreed with me. Well, he didn't know me, and he didn't. I've said this once before, and I'll say it only because of the context we're speaking. Theoretically, IQ-wise, I can stand eye to eye with Stephen Hawking. I can't beat him. Well, yes, I can. But that's not the point. I have experience that he doesn't have. I can work off my experience that he doesn't have. He couldn't possibly have. But in the form I'm in, I have an IQ comparable to... I'm at least as smart as I knew at 13 that Einstein was wrong. Okay? Now that I'm done bragging, that's not what I was doing. I was simply trying to bring out a point. Stephen Hawking stunned everyone when he basically said what I had said earlier without knowing each other. And that was, be careful what you wish for. Because if you listen to certain people on TV, like in Ancient Aliens and all,
yeah,
they're so happy. We can't wait to meet the Anunnaki coming back. Oh, let me get this straight. You've got a race of giants, super intelligent, hundreds of thousands of years advanced from you, above you, beyond you, who created you. And when they come back, they're going to accept you as an equal. Well, if the best you're going to be is their children, very naughty children who've been playing around with things that you shouldn't, like nuclear weapons and things of mass destruction and germ warfare and bacterial warfare and climate fucking and everything else bad. And I'm sure that they're going to be very pleased with what they see.
Yeah, because from earlier you stated that Earth is like a diamond in the rough.
Oh, it's more than a diamond in the rough. It's a highly polished diamond. If you saw the Earth as it was... If you saw the Earth as it was 1,000 years ago, I'm not even going to talk about 500,000. If you saw... Oh, God. If you'd have seen... If you had magically seen what the Anunnaki saw when they approached the Earth, you'd almost lose your mind. It's nothing like the stinkhole it is today.
Yeah,
it was... The clouds were white and pure. It was a marble. It was a deep, rich blue that shined. It glowed. the cloud covering was white. It was not dull, it was white. It had an aura around the planet, an energy field around the planet. It actually had energy you could see that showed up as a golden glow that protected the Earth from meteorites, things like that. You still have it. You haven't. This planet, what was not white and blue was green. You had vegetation that stretched, not for 10, 15 miles like in this puny little wells. Your vegetation stretched from coast to coast. Your trees were old timber. It was possible to find trees as thick as this house. They had never been cut down. They were hundreds of years old. You had mountain ranges that had ice so pure that it was like laboratory water. There was nothing in it except natural bacteria that should be there.
Right.
The water was pure. You could drink the water out of a stream. It was like ice water. The fish, there was a legend that the fish were so plentiful in the ocean that you could actually see them like herds of buffalo. You'd see them moving, and animals, they were just plentiful. There was nothing hunting them. There was nothing. They had only each other as predators. The buffalo herds that existed stretched for over 50 to 100 miles of nothing but buffalo. When they moved, it was like a glacier moving. The whole thing would just move. Once one started, you'd see like a 20, 30, 40, 50 mile patch of brown from the air moving. They were herd animals. So when the leader moved, the whole herd would move, and all of a sudden you look, and what looked like from orbit, you could see the herd of buffaloes. And it would look like a dot that big, 100 miles below you, 200 miles above you. It's a herd that big, and you could see the whole thing slowly moving. Mm-hmm. You can't see anything like that today. No.
We've totally abused this planet.
The Arctic was a tropic. There was no ice there. There was no ice in that time. There were mountains and trees, palm trees, lakes, rivers. It's still there on the 3 miles of ice. In the Annunnaki's time, there was no ice. It was a tropic. You could grow coconuts there. What you're seeing is a world lot like anything you call Earth today. Now it's a diamond in the rough. In that day, it was a highly polished Tiffany diamond. Finished product that big. Imagine a diamond that big.
Jesus.
Highly polished. That's after it's been cut down from this to this. Perfect. Priceless, one of a kind. If there are other Earths out there, they're very, 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 very rare. Trust me, I know. I do. They're very rare. I have never found another. I have never, even in my whole time, never found another one. And if they exist, they're so rare that they're. It's like walking through a forest and finding a giant ruby sitting there. Mm-hmm. Could it happen? Yeah. Is it going to happen? Not in my lifetime.
Yeah.
True.
No. So you mentioned that there was 20 to 30-ish, like, intelligent alien species out there.
They know of each other, and some of them are warring with each other.
So there is, like, galactic politics going on.
Oh, absolutely. It's been going on since the Annunaki. As a matter of fact, the reason the Anunnaki came here originally was because of a war on Mars. There was a war that happened there. Their planet was devastated. They ended up getting the hell off the planet while they still could, those who survived it. And the remains are still up on Mars. You can see them. They came to Earth. They helped create what they did. A lot of your early artifacts are recreations of what they left behind on Mars. Mm-hmm. They were good. They were well-intentioned. They were not bad. Their big sin was that the human race could not let them take over the planet. Right. And it had been up to the humans of the time. The humans of the time didn't give a damn one way or another. Right. But it's the humans of the future that realize that if they don't change the past, they won't have a future to come back to.
Now, the future humans created the Shiva project and the Yahweh project.
Well, the
highway.
The highway.
Now, do the Anunnaki have that sort of technology? And
different. It's different.
It's different.
They don't have that technology, no. Where the hell the highway project came from, I really don't know. You don't. I know that they are working on it now. There are theoreticians, people with IQs comparable to myself, who are, even I've been into it. You know, the self, I created a self years ago. I was a teenager at the time, and I was studying physics, hypothetical physics, and I came up with what I call the self-molliating theory, which postulates that time can change without adversely affecting the future. Well, it will affect the future. The problem is that once you change it, all things in the future changes so that they don't remember. In other words, if I go back in time, can I save the Titanic? Yes. I can make sure that the Titanic lands in New York on schedule with no loss, not even scratching the paint of the ship, and you won't lose one customer. The trouble is that I've changed history.
Right.
Now, here's the question for you. You're a smart boy. I want you to think of something. I'm holding here a newspaper in my hands, my pudgy little hands.
Yeah.
On this paper, it says right here, Titanic lost. Titanic sinks off North Atlantic, in the North Atlantic Sea. All hands, 1,200 people lost, whatever it had. Now, I got a question for you. Here's a picture of a drawing of the ship and a big iceberg. There's the iceberg and here's the ship. Okay? Now, you're holding this.
Yeah.
You're looking at this. Okay? See the ship there and the iceberg? Mm-hmm. The drawing of it? Because they didn't have a photograph of it, so they drew a very nice picture of it.
Yeah.
Now, if I go back into the past, and I sort of just go in a day ahead of them, before they reach the ice field, and I sort of know exactly which iceberg it was that hit them, and I sort of just using certain technological skills, sort of like just nudge those icebergs out of the way, or even better than that, just make them go away. And the ship goes through safely. It not only gets through safely to New York, it sets a record. That's what they were trying to do that night. It sets a world record for crossing the Atlantic. And now, what happens to that paper that said it sank? I've just gone back to April 12th, I believe it was, and I've changed history. Mm-hmm. I've made that ship get to New York. Now, you see, ship arrives. What happens to that paper? As you're holding that paper, two things can happen. Either that paper is going to be an anomaly. It never happened because the ship made it through. There's everybody waving on the docks. Right. There's a ship in the background. Or, as you're holding it, this image changes. What doesn't happen never happened. So you're either going to be holding an anomaly that never happened, or the paper itself will literally change. And you'll see what really appeared on the New York Times that morning. The happy people waving as they get off the ship disembarking the Titanic. Titanic arrives safe. And that is a self-molliating theory. Nobody remembers that the Titanic sank because it didn't. What sank? Nobody even got their hair messed up. Nobody even got wet.
Right.
That, because nobody remembers what really happened, because it didn't happen, that is self-molliating. It's changing to fit the new pattern. And since nobody will remember what happened, it has no adverse effect that anybody knows about. Let me ask you something. Are you really sure Hitler lost the war? Are you really certain? What would you say if I told you Hitler could still win the war? Not only could he win it, we could lose badly. We could all now be speaking German. Mm-hmm. All you've got to do is go back and find the key elements. Well, here's the classic one. I didn't make this one. This is classic. What happens if I go back and kill Hitler's mother before he's born?
Yeah.
Well, what will happen? Well, World War II won't happen. The other answer is, well, you can't kill him because he's meant to be. Well, that's horseshit. You can kill her. Bang, 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 bang. Oh, my gun's stuck. I'll beat you to death with the fucking thing. The bottom line is you can change history. They like to say, writers like to believe, like Rod Serling, that you cannot change history. The self-molliating theory states it. You can change history. The trick is that nobody will remember you doing it because you've altered reality. And that's the self-molliating.
How does the self-molliating theory answer the grandfather paradox? Say I go back to the
By the way, that's the word I was looking for earlier, paradox.
Yes.
Of you creating a book that becomes, they say, we're going to use this as the basis. I like the idea of the ultimate computer. I like that highway. We have the technology. What are we going to call it, George? Why don't we name it the highway?
Yeah.
Like the guy wrote about it in the book. That's the paradox. I'm telling you it's real. You write it. They see it. Who wrote it?
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering, how does a self-molliating theory answer to the grandfather paradox? Me I go to the past and I kill my mother and father before they'd conceived me.
Very simple answer. Very simple answer. The moment they die, you cease to exist. You would be standing there, let's say you're going to shoot them. Okay? You go back. Oh, please don't shoot us. I am your child. Sorry, baby, you gotta die. Boom, 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 boom. Mommy, daddy, dead. Boom, boom, boom. The moment you do that, the moment you kill the mother, you can kill the father. He's already done his job. The moment you kill mommy and the baby dies, you would literally stand there with the gun and you'd simply cease to exist. If somebody had seen you walk into the room, they wouldn't remember seeing you walk into the room because you never walked into the room. You never walked into the room because you never got born to go into the future, to go into the past. And the parents would be killed. Your parents would be killed by an unknown stranger that they never found. We just found them dead. They were shot by a gun, and he's probably still got the gun wherever he is, but we don't know. Nobody saw anybody come in. They just got found dead. We don't even know when they were shot. But they're dead. Somebody killed them and escaped. All we know is that from the condition of the body, is that they've been dead for maybe 8-9 hours. But we never found the shooter. The shooter and the gun, we don't know. The shooter and the gun cease to exist the moment the child dies. It's an easy answer. I told you I knew. And yes, you can kill Hitler.
Yeah.
You could. The trouble is that you change a lot of things. But again, with the self-molliating theory, how the hell would you know what you changed?
Right.
You could still save Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart, you just know where she's about to go down, where you last hear from her, you wait for her. When she goes down, whatever happens to her, you make sure she survives and get her home. She never died. She got saved.
Mm-hmm.
She never disappeared because you saved her. That's another one of the great points in history going back. They want to know where she went. And when the time is possible, when the highways, they know exactly where she was, on what day, on what time, because she was constantly calling in, and they knew exactly where she was when all of a sudden the radio went blank.
Yeah.
They know right where she was, and they'll be waiting for her.
All right.
Don't be surprised if Amelia's still alive. Up there. They took her with them. She's historically got to disappear. That didn't mean she died.
Yeah. I think one last question I want to ask.
Yeah.
Before I wrap all this up.
Sure.
So, with the different species of aliens and stuff, and all the politics and whatever is going on out there.
And I won't lie to you, I really don't know what's going on with that, Paul. Because
yeah,
I can tell you one thing, but go ahead. You ask and I'll tell you a little secret.
I just wonder why we aren't somewhat involved. I mean, we were involved with the Annunaki landing, but part of me wants to believe that we would see them perhaps at some points. But part of me also believes that, maybe there's just an agreement that should be left preserved as we are to evolve. And
well, I can tell you what's going on. I can actually tell you what's going on. There are about, actually working right now, there are probably as many as 12 interconnecting races that are dealing with with humans.
Okay.
And since the Roosevelt or the Truman administration, the government has been working covertly, secretly with them to move the race along. It is not a coincidence that in 1947, Roswell happened.
Right.
Roswell was a nice way of getting technology into human hands, and it was right after the Roswell incident of 1947 that we went into high super tech and advanced.
Yep.
In my own lifetime, we have gone from transistor tubes. I remember when I was a kid, I would look in the back of the TV, and you don't remember. You're not old. You're. How old is your father? About.
I'm 21.
Is he like 45?
Oh no, a little younger than that.
Oh, he's not old enough. He's a baby.
Yeah.
Ask your grandfather how old is your grandfather?
Grandfather on my mother's side is unfortunately dead.
Well, if he was alive, how old would he be?
Oh, I wouldn't know off the top of my head.
Would he be about my age?
About, yeah.
Then your grandfather would remember looking in the back as a kid of the TV set, like all kids did, and seeing those big orange tubes glowing. Mm-hmm. They were big Kessler tubes. Big tubes. And they'd blow occasionally, and you'd lose your TV, and the repairman would come in and put a new bulb in there, and it would light up. Whoa. Get orange. It was bright orange. Beautiful, actually. And get TV. Now, it was right after Roswell that suddenly all that stuff became. That's when all of a sudden you started inventing little things like cell phones, circuitry, microcircuitry, computers. All that stuff is not 500 years old, 180 years old. In my lifetime, we were still dealing with tubes.
Yeah.
It was right after that suddenly things really that computer you got there.
Yeah.
Then you wouldn't have that if you didn't have Roswell. They weren't working on stuff like that. They were, but they were nowhere near as advanced as they became so fast.
Yeah.
It was because what they did is it happened in Germany 10 years before Roswell, and it happened in Roswell in 1947. And what happened is that the government grabbed what was left of the ships, and with engineers, reverse engineered a lot of what they found, and they realized, my God, that's a microcircuit. Well, what is that, sir? It's a circuit that's micro. What does that mean? It's faster, smaller, holy shit, more capacity. We can move mountains with that. And what happened is it was alien technology reapplied to human needs.
All right. So
yes, they are. And
they are so we are interconnected in this whole thing.
At a governmental level.
Yeah.
If you believe certain people within the industry, now I'm going to give you something that's going to bug you way out.
All right.
Way out. You're not going to believe this. Do I believe it? Yes. We're already on Mars. Mm-hmm. We're on there. We've been on there since the late 60s. Human beings are walking on Mars now. Way back in the 50s, when ex-Nazi, he was a Nazi, but they all have him pictured with, sitting there with a big smile, with Hitler. Mm-hmm. I was under duress. Hitler made me do this bad stuff. I was making missiles to cross the Atlantic to bomb New York, the Manhattan Project.
Yes, he was the rocket scientist. Yep.
But he also said, when they asked him where he got a lot of his inspiration, he said, we had a lot of help from out. He looked up. We had a lot of help from up there. In the 50s, in the early mid-50s, he wrote a small pamphlet book. I've seen it. And it basically showed how to get to Mars. And he laid it out. I can get you to Mars by 1968, 69. Flash up. Mm-hmm. A couple of years ago, NASA's got a habit. They have wonderful photographs and they release photographs.
Yep.
And I think you know where I'm going with this one.
Yep.
They got a picture of the little rover. It sort of like went, boink, oh shit. And it was taking pictures. The little head spins around and takes pictures of all the landscape. Well, it caught and sent back a nice picture. You remember the picture?
I think so.
It was a picture you're not really certain.
I think so. I'm not certain.
It showed the shadow of a human being, a man, with his hair up, like it was in the wind, in the breeze. He's wearing goggles. He's got an oxygen tank on his back, and you can see his hand up, and he's adjusting something on the rover. They needed help, and he said, "Oh, damn it, the little pinky thing. Here, let me fix that." And it turned around, took a picture of him. Sent it back to NASA. NASA released it. It's a man.
Oh my goodness.
It's a fucking man. It's not even a woman. It's a fucking man. He's a guy wearing goggles and a oxygen tank. You can even see the jacket. You can see the suit, the ruffle. It's like the wrinkles.
Yeah.
He's wearing a wrinkle, like a jacket, like a shirt.
Yeah.
You can even see it. It's a man. It's a human being. How the hell is a human being on Mars? Well, it seems that we have one of those weird things. A computer hacker, a master, wow, mama, computer hacker, like one of the best in the world. He got arrested for it. Mm-hmm. He hacked in to NASA's programs. And he started noticing something. That there was USS designations USS, USS, USS. With weird numbers, weird officers' names, USS officer this, USS officer that. And it seems that there's all kind of massive programming funding going into an unknown NASA program with designations of USS, United Spaceship Crew. And when they caught him at it, he was arrested for that, but he leaked it out. And now they think that there are Americans on Mars. They've been on there since about 69, 70. Mm-hmm. Do I believe it? It was somebody's shadow. You got to believe one of two things. One or two things. See, that's two things. One, that rover is somewhere on America taking phony pictures in Utah. Or there's a human being on Mars. Can't have it both ways.
Right.
He's either there or it's here. And if it's on Mars, that leaves that. You got human beings on Mars. The space program was just, we had to do it to prove we could do it. Von Braun kicked you way all the way to Mars. Don't worry, the Nazis were planning on doing it anyway. Yeah. All he did is he just took what they wanted to do and did it with American funding.
Yeah.
Do I believe it? Yes, I do.
All right.
And I do believe that there are more and more alien sightings. Now, I'll tell you something really weird. There was a time when if you said you believed in UFOs, you believe in flying saucers, you were automatically, the public at large, and I've saw this myself personally, and I'm not the only one. Von Däniken saw it. Everybody saw it. At public law, they even made a joke of it on the Brady Bunch.
Oh my!
Did you ever see the Brady Bunch?
Not really, but I know.
Well, there was one where Greg, you remember Greg, the older boy, the little kids, the younger boys are outside. Peter and Bobby are downstairs camping out in the backyard. And stupid Greg turns around and he puts a sheet on the clothesline. And it's nighttime, and he's got a flashlight with a little picture of a flying saucer cartoon on it, a little drawing. And he's got a whistle. You know, with that sound effect. And at night, he goes, are they down there? He flashes the light on, and he hits the sheet, and there's the picture of the flying saucer, supposedly, you know, and he goes, and they see that, a flying saucer. And of course, now here's what my point is I'm getting to. The kids, the sisters, the girl, Marcia, are automatically trained by this culture of the time that if you see, anybody sees a UFO, make fun of them.
Oh my goodness.
What? Bobby, you see it? Hey, Bobby, better not look under your bed. There might be flying aliens under there. Could be a flying saucer under there. Yeah. Hey, what's the matter? What are you looking at, Bobby? What's in the closet? Might be an alien. Watch out, Bobby. You know? See, the whole idea was to make fun of people. It was because that way nobody would dare. You know, policemen, if a pilot in the Air Force or in Pan Am, TWA, a commercial pilot, saw a UFO flying by them and said, oh, excuse me, flight tower, there's something up here. What is up there, Captain Bob? It looks like a cigar cylinder ship. He'd get back and have a pink notice. By the way, you've been considered crazy. Mental health issues. You can't fly the plane no more. Go home. Lead a nice life. Bye-bye. You could be cashiered out of the Air Force if you dared say you saw a UFO. You've spent years becoming a fighter pilot. You're one of the best fighter pilots in the world. You could be a Vietnam veteran for the fucking kill record like the Red Baron. They turn around and say, hey, he's crazy. He saw UFOs. He saw a UFO. He's crazy. He can't fly. He's seeing things. And so that became so prevalent, such a fear factor, that people didn't see anything. I saw nothing. You and I both know what you saw, didn't you, George? What did you see, Bob? Well, I saw what you saw. Didn't you see it, Bob? Bob, no, I didn't see. What did you see? I saw a cigar. Did you see a cigar? Yeah. And it became a big, nobody dares. And it was only years later when people started seeing something like 10,000 sightings a year. There's something like 10,000 sightings in America. There are sightings in Russia. There are as many sightings in Russia as in America.
Yep.
And the sightings have been going back since before the Indians. There are legends 500, 600, 700, 800 years old of Indians before a white man seeing, hey, big stick Indians in the sky. You know what the stick Indians were? According to the Navajo and Indians, indigenous to the plains, there was a time where if at certain times an egg would land, a great egg from the mysterious birth in the night would land, and the little mysterious stick Indians would come out. They called them stick Indians. They were little people that would come out. They were the stick Indians. And the little stick Indians knew many things and would teach the Indian, the red man, all these things. They would teach them how to hunt, what to do these things, what to look for, and what medicines were good to use. Yes, and then they would return back up into the egg. And we'd see them the following year. They would come back. Every year, the stick Indians would come back to visit and bring spam or whatever, you know.
Yeah, I know what you're getting at.
But the point is that these Indians are dead serious. Their ancestors believed in the Kachina. The Kachina is based on alien visitors. They came from the stars. They came from the heavens. And they would come and they would do these wondrous things for the Indians, help them. And then they would go back and the Indians worshiped them. What the hell are they talking about? Well, they're talking about non-human beings that are coming down from something in 1781, 1620. Kachinas go back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, maybe thousands. Those Indians believe in that stuff. The Aborigines of Australia believe in aliens.
Yeah.
And they took them as normal. The Eskimos, the Inuit people, knew of them very well. They would land and get out and help the people and whatever, and then they'd get back in there. The mighty... One of the Inuit legends is that they came from an egg. That a mighty egg landed, and out they came, and they became the Inuit. The Eskimos believed that they came from an egg that came from the heavens. What do you think that egg? What the hell do you think that was? A giant chicken? But think of the shape.
Yeah.
Think of the shape. What does... That's a round circle, doesn't it? It looks like a round circle, right?
Yep.
What does it look like now?
All right.
An oval.
An oval.
If you look at it like that, it looks like an oval.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't see this part. If you see... I can't do it without... I don't want to make a mess, but you get the idea.
I get the idea.
Take a quarter. Hold a quarter up. Look at it this way. Now turn the quarter slowly this way. I see an egg from the heavens.
Yep.
The egg lands, the little people get out. It stayed. Or maybe it crashed. Because who the hell would live in frickin' Alaska?
Yeah.
Boy! You know, no, really, for real. I mean, it probably crashed. All through the year. I can tell you a secret right now. I know it's a fact that I can't prove, but you got to take my word for it. All over by my calculations, if you could magically do it, all over the world, I'll even tell you where the hell to look. Look in the desert, specifically the Sinai and the Sahara.
Yep.
Look in the Arctic, and look in the deepest parts of the ocean. And you will find ships that have crashed hundreds, many thousands of years ago that are long forgotten. Under the ocean, 2-3 miles down, aliens are long dead. The thing is sitting in 8 feet of silt, 10 feet of silt. It dug itself in when it came down, and it's been sitting there waiting to be discovered. When the wind blows just right on the Sahara Desert one day, they're going to find a ship that crashed and dug itself into the sand, and a sandstorm came up and buried it under 20 feet of sand. And it's never been found. And it's just waiting for you to find it. There are as many as between 10 and 20 flying saucers that crashed in the last 8 to 10,000 years. For every 500 flying saucers that they see, one once in a while loses control and crashes.
Yep.
And that's the truth. They're all over the world, but people haven't discovered them because they can't get at the areas. The ice is 3 miles thick in the Arctic. At about maybe 500 feet from the base of that ice, do you think that there might be something that crashed there 15,000 years ago?
Possibly.
Very likely.
Very likely. Yeah.
Very, very likely. If 1,000 UFOs passed over, all you had to do was have one crash.
Yeah.
To lose control, crash, everybody got killed. And it just got covered up with the ice. And the ice built, and the ice built, and the ice built. And now 3 miles later, it's under 3 miles of fucking ice.
Jesus.
But it's there.
Yeah.
All you got to do is find it. And you got all the technology of an advanced civilization. Even at 15,000 years ago, they're more advanced than you are today. They made it all the way from here, from there. Think about it.